Good evening, good afternoon, good morning. Welcome to Heroes for Harris, Kamala-Con 2024, a gathering of storytellers, heroes imagined and real to help us be us, tell a better story of us, and maybe, save our Republican democracy in the process. I am one of your co-hosts, Baratunde Thurston, storyteller of interdependence across nature, humans, and technology. And I'm so excited to be joined by the multi-generational king of all geek nerd homies, Sean Astin. What's up, Sean? How you doing?
Baratunde, I'm doing great. One of the things I'm famous for is playing a sidekick, Samwise Gamgee in the Lord of the Rings. So I am more than excited to be serving as your sidekick in this most exciting fundraising Zoom.
We are on an epic quest together, and I think you just implied that I might be your Frodo, which would make me
You're my
Frodo Tunde.
Frodo. Yeah.
Oh, so excited. Sean, what are you doing here? I mean, I know you're back, the Goonies, the Lord of the Rings, the Stranger Things, the 51st Dates, and this is a different kind of a role that you're playing tonight. Can you tell me and us gathered here what you're doing here?
Absolutely. It seems like one of the stories that is going to come out of this campaign is it was started by Black woman for Harris, and then white women for Harris, and then white dudes for Harris, and then Latinos for Harris, and then Asians for Harris, and then they did comics for Harris. Well, I have spent much of my time in the last 24 years since Lord of the Rings came out attending Comic Cons and regional Comic Cons. I'm here in Ottawa, Canada at the moment, having just left the stage and raced back to my hotel room to be a part of this moment with you. And it's an idea whose time is just so um, it's the time has come, the time has passed, and I've I'm a powerful, um, engaged citizen. Uh, is it maybe it's not humble to call yourself powerful, but I just mean like I'm intensely focused on the civic
Yeah.
life of our country, and I just got my degree, my master's in public administration and public policy, and um, the idea of being a national surrogate for Kamala Harris, um, it just feels. I came up with this. I doodled a map, and I highlighted the battleground states, and I wanted to go there, and so I just decided one day, like, I'm going to campaign now. And my
Yeah.
wife says, "Well, wait, did the campaign ask you?" I said, "The campaign's not ready for me. They're doing other stuff, but I can't wait anymore. I'm going." And I did a little video of myself where I said, the only kind of leadership, I said, I fashion myself a leader, even if it's only in my mind. And the only kind of leadership that matters is leadership by example. So, and that little 1 minute video got 11 million views.
Yeah.
11 million views. I don't think I'd ever gotten more than a million, maybe two once in the 20 years of doing, Twitter or X or whatever. And it just became very, very clear to me that something epic is happening in the country. The fever has broken, the time has
Mhm.
come, and people now are doing what we need to do in order to ensure that this generational changes happen, but also this philosophical and mood change. And so that's just me. I'm out there going to campaign offices, and I've done 6 states already. I've been at all different kinds of events, canvassing and phone banking, and been to union halls and been to,
Yeah.
anyhow, that's it. I'm just a regular average citizen doing my job for my country and my family.
I love that you're doing that, and I love that you weren't asked. You just put yourself forward. And I think this is a moment for all of us to put ourselves forward. I have not racked up as many views as you. I'm sure there's many people looking right now who don't really know who I am. By very brief introduction, I'm the son of Arnold and Arnita. I was born in Washington, D.C. I'm a storyteller across a lot of different formats. All of my stories connect to themes of interdependence, how we relate to nature, how we relate to each other, how we relate to technology. And so some people might be familiar with my PBS series, America Outdoors, where I've connected with people who are deeply connected to this earth all over our country. My podcast series, How to Citizen, something you're doing so much, Sean, in this moment, like citizen as a verb, not merely an immigration status, but a level of participating that we all are invited into, and this moment is calling us into, and how we relate to these machines and this technology, which is a topic for another time. But it relates to a special moment that we have coming up right here. We are raising the stakes in this conversation. We have a very special guest, and I'm actually like I've been trying to play it cool. I think I've done a reasonable job, but my mother, who I invoked earlier, Arnita Lorraine Thurston, was a computer programmer in the early 1980s, started late 1970s, definitely early 1980s, no college degree, worked for the US federal government, changed my life, changed my sister's life, changed our whole family's trajectory, and really used these tools to open up a new pathway for me. And a movie came out that honored women like her, that honored Black women like her, real life heroes, who were citizening, who were serving their country in a particular way, who were using these new advanced technological tools. And we have, I can't believe I'm about to say this, we have Octavia Spencer here with us to share a moment. She played Dorothy Vaughan in Hidden Figures. She's played so many other powerful figures. She herself is a real life, very unhidden, very prominent figure that we are so honored to have here. So I want to welcome from the help, from Hidden Figures, from movements and moments that have not yet been won, but which we are continuing to be honored to be a part of. Octavia Spencer, are you in
Thank
the
you.
room with us?
I am in the room, and I am excited to be in the room with other activists. And let me just say, I love the title of the group, Heroes. I've actually I don't know that I'm heroic in my own life, in that everything from spiders to snakes scare the absolute hell out of me. But um, I have played amazing women like Dorothy Vaughan, and I did don a superhero costume once. Um, but I'm here and grateful to everyone who's logged on because I see all of us as heroes in this moment. Um, because as citizens, we all understand the most sacred thing, our democracy, is on the ballot. So many other things are on the ballot. But first and foremost, in order to have differing ideologies, we need to be able to express them. We need to be able to
Mm.
be a part of the civic process. And Project 2025 threatens that. Women have already lost their right to choose. And there's so many other things that we will lose if we don't not only elect Kamala Harris and Tim Walz to office, but give them a mandate in the Congress. And so I am like you both, like all of us here, um, engaging civically because I've always been a person who engaged behind the scenes. But it's important for all of us to show our faces publicly as we continue these efforts to maintain our democracy. So thank you for having me. But I also want to say, because this actually happened to me, the first thing besides being here and donating um, is to ensure that you are registered to vote. I say this because I moved.
Mhm.
And when I moved, when I changed my driver's license, I was told that I was also registering to vote. I didn't think anything of it until a couple of weeks ago. I saw all of the flyers and notes saying, make sure you register to vote. So I panicked a little bit and I checked. And sure enough, my driver's license information was there, but I was not registered to vote. I caught the
Mm.
mistake and registered. So after we all leave this group, everyone please check your status. Check your status because every voice counts and we need you to show up either by paper ballot or on Super Tuesday. So I want to thank again all of these heroes in the panelists and everyone who's joined on, who are thinking, how can I help this effort? The fact that you're here means that you too are heroic.
Here. Thank
Incredible.
you so much for that. Wow.
Can
I
I ask you
also,
a question,
go ahead, John. Yeah.
Octavia?
Yes.
Because we were talking before we started the show about Bertrand and I were talking, and the folks who made the show talking about mythology and talking about narrative. And I'm just wondering how you feel about where we're at in the American story. This feels like such a moment that is like no other that has ever been. And I'm just wondering if you, as a yeah, purveyor of mythology yourself, if you how you feel about where we're at right now.
Well, I feel that America, even though we are nearing our 250th birthday, that's still a very young country. If you look at all of the other sovereign nations around the world, we're still very young. And in our youth, we've actually been able to maintain uh, the republic. And it's because the people that we voted into office, we might not have always agreed with their ideologies, but ma majority of them um, had strong moral fabric. And where we are right now, the reason things are in such upheaval um, feels mythological, in that it never occurred to me that we were not only headed to a point where we could erase over 100 years worth of progress. You could name any, whether it's the right to vote, suffrage movement for women, um, uh, civil liberties, for Black people, people of color, marriage, the right to, all of these different things. And the fact that we want to erase all of that progress and move us to a time to where we were over 100 years ago, but also put this nation in a place that we've never been. We've never been under a dictatorship. We've never been under a monarchy. It was all about the people having a voice in the democratic process, the people. And so where I see the narrative is dangerous, um, but also there's this other side, the fact that we are congregating in every way that we can, whether it's Zoom, in the old days, it would be at your churches and the barber shops. We're communicating and joining together as citizens in every way we can to inspire each other to say that doesn't have to be our future. And so I feel that while the narrative is being written in a prose that some of us, don't like, we all have the power to ensure that the story being written is exactly what the American people intend.
Thank you for
Yeah.
that. I could not agree more. You named so many things, including some of the focus on fundamentals. Check your registration status. That's for those who have the right to vote. Let's not lose it. The ballot itself is on the ballot in many ways in this upcoming election. And you named the
One last
donations.
thing,
Yeah.
Dave, just because you're
Sure.
driving this moment, but I just want to say, Octavia, you said it, and I don't know if the audience really heard it. You were insistent before we came on the air that you get your pocketbook out and that you donate. You were
Yeah.
very specific that you wanted to donate. And I've met a lot of leaders, civil rights leaders, uh, people who, the thing that people like you, leaders like you have in common is attention to detail. And so this is a fundraiser Zoom, and we're going to be talking to a lot of really cool people. And I just want the people who are watching just to keep that in mind. I don't like the idea that if we say, hey, smash that button or hit that button or donate, that it's like the first time you're thinking, or that it feels like it's coming out of some place of desperation. This is what we're here for. We are going to raise money right now. So give a little bit of thought to how much you might want to give, and we'll prompt you throughout the course of this conversation to think about maybe giving if you can at that moment. So I just wanted to honor your action of donating as the first person to donate to this fundraiser.
Well, thank you. And I wouldn't ask anybody to do something that I wouldn't also do to support. So it's imperative. While I am a fan of everybody that I see, um, we are also in action. We must raise money for our cause as well as congregating and inspiring each other.
Mm.
Amen.
Yes, yes, and more yes. Sean, thank you for asking for the money. It leads me to not do that. Appreciate that.
You'll have more chances.
Octavia. Well, I don't know. You did such a good job with it, though. You did such a good job with it. I can be the good cop. You can be the money cop. Do the church shakedown, pass the plate. Um, there with everyone who's coming on, we could spend literally an hour going deeper, unpacking further. We have so many more stories, so many more dollars, so many more reminders of how we can show up and citizen together, regardless of our immigration status, to make this country better. So I want to thank everybody who's already donated with a very significant form of power, which is your attention. You are listening, you are watching right now, you are giving something of yourself. And if you don't have significant financial means, really representing and honoring the attentive means that you have already granted to this moment. I also want to acknowledge the organizers of this gathering, the Progressive Change Campaign Committee and Schlepp Labs, who are behind Heroes for Harris Kamala-Con 2024. And as we start our bridge into the next segment, I want to bring up one of those leaders, the creative cultural change strategist, a hero amongst our fellow storytellers, Andrew Slack. If you are in the wings, can you make your way to the stage, please? And let's have a little moment. What's up, bro?
Oh man, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we hear you, we see you, and most
My
importantly, we
lighting
feel you.
sucks, but hi. And wow, it's so good to be with you guys. I'm so proud of the people that have made this happen, and I'm so proud to be part of this larger movement of all these affinity groups that are doing incredible things to get this. This is, we at Schlep Labs, our partners at the Progressive Change Campaign Committee are just so proud to have brought this together because, I mean, look, guys, hi. I don't know what to say. You've already said it. I was thinking about recently. We were talking to some stars from Star Wars that hoped to get on, and just back in 2008, how we were in A New Hope, that Obama had given us that, and then the empire struck back. Right, that's Donald Trump, and that's the empire that is patriarchy, and the way that has been changed is that a very qualified man, Joe Biden, stepped down. And in his stepping down for a more qualified than him woman to be the first Black woman as president, the force changed. There's been an awakening in the force. And this is the thing this is the chink in the Death Star of Donald Trump's Project 2025. I want us to think about that and to think about this journey that we're on together, Sean, Baratunde, to Mordor, where we're watching and we're rooting for you, our Sam and Frodo, but all of us, as Octavia said, doing this together. The last thing I want to say here is that there's a lot of people who think that when we talk about pop culture, talk about the arts, or talk about fantasy, that's frivolous, and the policy stuff, that's serious. And those people have been shocked by the success that Donald Trump has had because he exists in pop culture. He exists in fandom. He exists in the hero's journey. And so with no one doing that, this untalented, very weird dude, Weird Donald, has taken over and taken those reins. We need to remember that the stories that really populate the things of our heart, stories that Octavia is a star of, stories that Sean, Jesus Christ, I mean, like those stories are guiding us towards a better tomorrow, where we get beyond Donald Trump, and a better tomorrow. We remember that fantasy is not an escape from our world. It is an invitation to go deeper into it. And when we go deeper into it together, we can build something that is truly amazing. And we are already doing that now with that force having awakened, with Joe Biden stepping down. And now we see positive masculinity in the form of Tim Walz, in the form of in the form of Doug Emhoff, and we see a woman that we can all look to with reverence and respect and joy. So that force of hope and that force of joy is back, and I'm just excited. But I'm also nervous because in 2 days, guys, we got this debate, this battle with Darth Donald or whatever weird Donald we want to call him, and we need to remember this is not a spectator sport. This debate. The debate will be won by who people have determined won. It's perception, right? It's a story. So we need to be the heroes to shape that story. We got to build memes and put them out there on Tuesday to respond to that debate. So those are my like unprepared, off the cuff remarks. But I'm so excited to be part of this with you guys, and just Sean, just having you here is a dream, and just this journey, it takes a lot of it's taken a lot out of us since 2016, and it feels like, I mean, we're all so freaking exhausted, but we keep going.
That was extraordinary riff you just went on there, man. That was powerful medicine right there. Lord of the Rings is this incredible piece of literature from the 20th century. It was written during the time of the Second World War, and Tolkien would take these chapters that he would write and he would send them to his son Christopher, who was in Europe on the ground. And in Tolkien's letters, he talks about how he didn't want Sauron, who's the evil force that needs to be vanquished, for people who don't know it, but that he didn't want it to be a direct allegory of Hitler. He did not want it to, and you sort of think, well, but obviously, like, those orcs are the stormtrooper, like, it's very clear that he was writing it about Hitler, but his point in his letters is that every generation you have, and I'm intentionally not drawing a direct allegory to Hitler with Trump. What I'm saying is that there is darkness, and there's pain, and there's misunderstanding, and there is intentional obfuscation, and there's bad behavior, there's bad will behavior that's happening, and it's so obvious to anybody who's looking that people are behaving with bad will and ill intention. And so the fact that a fictional story can let you live in it and saturate in it and feel like you're understanding it and give you agency, so you can feel like you're part of the overcoming of the villainy, the darkness, the evil, or whatever. I think, what you were just saying, we and what Octavia was saying, and we've got some pretty cool people coming up here that I'm looking at. Yeah. Yeah, you said it. I just think
Every time you
great
speak,
to be able
Sean,
to.
I feel like you're gonna just break out into the great that monologue at the end of Two Towers.
You want me to do that? I know you want me to do that, and we talked about. I'll do it real quick.
It's my dream.
I know it's your dream. I'll do it real quick because, and we'll use it kind of as in an academic way, but it's oh my gosh, now I'm not gonna remember. Mr. Frodo, what is it? It's like in the great stories, Mr. Frodo, the ones that really mattered. Full of darkness and danger they were. And sometimes you didn't want to know the end, because how could the end be happy? How could the world go back to the way it was when so much bad had happened? But in the end, it's only a passing thing, this shadow. Even darkness must pass, and a new day will come. And when the sun shines, it'll shine out the clearer. Those are the stories that stayed with you, that meant something, even if you were too small to understand why. But I think, Mr. Frodo, I do understand now. Folk in those stories had lots of chances of turning back, only they didn't. They kept going because they were holding on to something. What are we holding on to, Sam? That there's some good left in this world, Mr. Frodo, and it's worth fighting for. All the guests that all the folks, the luminaries who are about to come on this screen now, have participated in that type of storytelling, and so it'll be awesome to hear them share their experience and their viewpoint. I've been wondering about this talk. If there's issues, there's big powerful issues, the economy, protecting democracy, women's reproductive rights, labor unions. There's a long list of receipts that Kamala Harris has, a long list of and then there's the kind of like dynamics of this of what's going on. What was it like for a president to step out of power? What's it like for a new person to have to essentially introduce herself to many people in the country? What are these so there's we could go so many places in this conversation. I just encourage any of the people who are going to come on now to direct your comments in whatever is the most comfortable, wherever you're interested in going with it.
Yeah. It's just, going back to that epic tale. The two things stand out for me about this Lord of the Rings story. One is the fellowship. It is not a solo journey. That is the myth. That is the lie that we are fed, that we're alone, that we pick ourselves up by our bootstraps, which is physically foolish and impossible, but that we lift each other up. And when one of us gets tired, we rotate and we carry each other. And like the song says, we carry each other. Mary J said that one. So there's the fellowship part of this, and we're in a moment of fellowship specifically, but also more broadly and metaphorically. And the other is the ring. And you alluded to this, Andrew, in talking about this transition from Biden to Harris and the significant move to reject, a form of power and move it forward and have a moment to celebrate and honor that it is about the transition, the peaceful and continual flowing transition of power, not the concentration of it, not the clinging to it, not the fear of its loss, but the knowledge of its flow. And so I just want us to flow with that moment into our next great contribution, great contributor from a story that literally never ends. Just like that flow of power I was talking about, the never-ending story. We have actress, choreographer, dancer, supporter of the arts, Tammy Stronach, who I first know of as the childlike Empress character from the never-ending story, though she has done more than that. Welcome to the room. Welcome to the stage, Tammy. How are you?
So much. I'm so excited to be a part of this and to be amongst everyone here, and just so relieved to feel this ball rolling and to just be able to join in with this movement. It's just really exciting, and I'm just honored to be here. So thank you for inviting me to this.
Hey, Tammy.
Hi.
So what are you feeling in this moment, and what are you feeling called to share right now?
Well, I just think that this conversation about the power of stories being important in order to motivate us to sort of act is really useful to kind of stay in for a while. I think that you can saturate the world with facts and figures. We can throw all the doomsday things that are happening at each other, and we'll just get sort of sadder and sadder and feel less and less able to combat it. And stories really are like food for the soul. It's like nourishment to like find the way forward. And so I feel like it is really useful to tap into pop culture, to the stories that are all meaningful to us, and ask ourselves why those stories are meaningful to us and how do they inspire us to make the real world better. I know it's so interesting what Sean was saying about the Lord of the Rings, because of course Michael Ende, who wrote the NeverEnding Story, was a teenager during World War II. And his the story, the NeverEnding Story, I mean, obviously these stories are interpreted by different people. We pour ourselves into it. There isn't a singular interpretation, but it's very difficult to imagine, knowing the context that he grew up in Nazi Germany, and he joined forces to subvert the Nazis. He went to the resistance movement. He tore up his card to join, and so I've always looked at the NeverEnding Story as a fable to kind of ask us, when the forces of darkness gather, what are the tools that we have to fight it? And again, I think, not naming Hitler, like having it be open so that we can make it relevant to our own times. It can be a big problem. It can be a small problem, right? It can expand and be relevant for the moment. But so I think that, what I just wanted to share about the NeverEnding Story is that, in that story, Bastian is this little boy and he feels really helpless in the world, and the nothing is destroying everything and he's not doing anything. And Atreyu gets really upset with him and he's like, well, why doesn't he do something? And he knows all he has to do is call out, the Empress's name. And the line is, he simply can't imagine that one little boy could be that important. And I think we all feel that way sometimes. We just all feel like it's the forces of greed and misinformation are just so insurmountable. How could I be a part of a change? And so I want to just remind everybody not to sink into the swamps of sadness. Like find hope, find joy. That's how we defeat it. Find togetherness. And I think these stories, it would be such a terrible story. Could you imagine if he just gave up and sank into the swamp? No one wants to read that. No one wants to see that. And we certainly don't want to live it, right? We want to. Yeah. So, just contributing as someone who was a part of that legacy, those important ideas that Ende contributed, and I've been very, very tired. And I've been very sort of like, gosh, what are we going to do? And maybe I just turn the news off. Like, I don't even know, And so I'm so thrilled with Harris just bringing this energy and this like momentum and this. I just feel so grateful to her campaign and to the kind of just like spring. It's like new buds popping up.
Thank you, Tammy. And I think part of what I took from what you shared is, be the story that you want to read, right? You talked about no one wants to read that story where he just sinks into the mud and gives up. But also acknowledging that sometimes we do just want to sink into the mud and give up. And I think where we sometimes get into trouble is we pretend we're not feeling that, right? And don't acknowledge it and feel a sense of shame around that.
And while it's
we don't know we can move through it. Yeah. No, go ahead, Sean. Jump on in.
Sorry, I don't like doing that. The terrifying challenge that some of us have right now when we're deciding whether or not we can be that voice that can make a difference is the idea of going to the mall where the campaign office is, and spending an hour talking to fellow volunteers and placing some telephone calls, or going with a large group of people and knocking on doors. It's horrifying. It's people, or wait, no, this just in, totally doable. Volunteering, totally doable.
Yeah, and speaking of doable, we've cleared at least $10,000 raised during this session. I think we have a new goal of about 20, and we will keep raising the bar so long as we keep meeting the bar. That is how we move forward in a truly literal sense. So thank you for bringing a story within the NeverEnding Story, reminding us of the timelessness of that, and how we all might want to sink into the swamp of sadness. And let's lift each other out of that and look forward to that shadow passing, looking forward to that light returning, and be a part of, not passively hoping for it, but taking a step, toward that light. That's how we get closer to it.
Thank you, Tammy.
So much
That was
appreciation.
awesome.
I'm just going to say one last thing before I leave you.
Yeah.
The actress who played the childlike empress, it is my sincere wish, if I ever could, to give Kamala Harris a new name, which would be Madam President. That's the name I would want to give her.
Yes, that has a great ring to it, and I would love to hear little boys, little girls, little children all over screaming that out from the bright places and from their own sad places as we all find ourselves in that time. So let that name come to be. Thank you. Tammy Stronach in the house.
Thank you.
Sean, what are we in for next?
So we have after Tammy, I think we're going to introduce the Joneses. I think we're running well behind our slate, so maybe we'll invite each guest, and I won't opine so much, and we'll move forward like that, so we can get everybody so nice with their time. We don't want to keep people waiting too long. So, but allow me to allow me. Is that am I right on that?
You are right. We are going to keep up with the Joneses, I
We're gonna keep
believe. So we got two Joneses joining us. Go for it. We got
wait,
Joyce and we got Justin.
Okay, so Joyce is a well, the little bio that we have here, I think it's going to be better if just the two of them explain who they are to the audience. I mean, you're known to a lot of us who've seen you and watched you talking about your journey and your experience. But why don't is Joyce there? I'm looking. Okay, and Justin is there. So Joyce, do you want to start maybe and share a little bit of your story for our viewers?
For the few
Yeah.
who don't know you, hello and welcome.
Hello and welcome.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you. I'm so super excited. I'm starstruck. And so I'm going to try to contain myself. I am Joyce Jones. I'm from down here in the South, Alabama, little bitty town in the middle, literally in the heart of Alabama called Montevallo. And the reason why I'm here is during in the middle of the pandemic, I had this crazy idea that our city deserved to have a choice in their municipal elections. We were going to have someone who was going to run unopposed because the current mayor was stepping away and wasn't going to run again. And so I went around town begging other people to run. And finally someone said, well, you're passionate about it. Why don't you do it? And I didn't see myself as someone who could really do something like that. I was just Joyce Jones. Like I just work at the local college, raise my family, and I didn't see myself as in that way. So anyway, I decided to run in the middle of the pandemic when you couldn't campaign the traditional way, but I've always lived by this idea that if you stand in the light and you love people, then good things will happen, right? So I live by hero stories. And not to mention, we were caged in the house and couldn't do anything but watch TV. So I was getting pumped up by watching all these hero shows, and Hamilton was free on Disney. And I was making sure I was going to take my shot and all of those things. And I ended up running and I lost by 48 votes.
Oh.
But I lost because what was supposed to be nonpartisan, small town municipal elections became something else. And we were infiltrated by what was going on nationally. 2020 was the Trump era, right? The beginning of that whole era. And a coalition who called themselves the Conservative Coalition coalesced. And all of their candidates got together and they all campaigned together, and they used social media as a catalyst to tear me down. Although Montevallo is the only place I've lived my whole life. I knew everyone. We go to the grocery store. We have 2 grocery stores and 5 stoplights in my town. So I grew up there. People knew me, but I became this monster because of what was being said about me on social media. And the people who had loved me, gone to high school with me, gone to church with me, worked with me, became the others. I became the other to them because I dared to run for mayor. And people would ask me things. Are you going to take away my gun? Are you going to defund the police? I just want to fill potholes. And I want to make sure that everyone in my town has a seat at the table, because what was happening in our town is there were sections of our town who felt like they didn't have representation, like people weren't speaking up for them. And you can't ask other people to take a step if you're not willing to do it first. And that's what I mean by standing in the light and sharing love. And so that's why I'm here, because I did lose by 48 votes. And you know what else is funny? We're talking about getting people out to vote. We increased voter registration in our town. It was the highest voter turnout for a municipal election in the history of our city. We had more people voting, but we also experienced the worst times. My 87-year-old grandmother was turned away from the poll that day because she had on a shirt that said Joyce Jones for mayor. Although people in my campaign who don't look like me were able to wear their shirts and vote before she was. So there were all kinds of layers to that. But I ended up on the New York Times, which is why I'm here, because people saw that story, people became invested in that story. But I still work really hard to tell people that you can't let the ugliness of politics change who you are. And that's how we become everyday heroes, by helping people just stand in the light and share the love and bring people to our side no matter what happens.
The fact that you're so full of your spirit is so positive when you're relating this story, because there's the history of that kind of maltreatment and bad and just villainy in our countries. But I certainly hope you run again, and I'll move there and vote for you twice at least, however many times I can up the ballot box.
Just for the record, Sean is not doing that. If he does move there, he will cast the legal number of ballots only after successfully registering. These are jokes, and we want to make sure that these jokes aren't clipped as
That's
acts
right.
of
That's
disinformation
right.
to weaponize and undermine our democracy. It's something Tammy brought up in the previous segment with the NeverEnding Story we didn't quite get to, but when creatures die, in Fantasia, they end up in our world as lies. And a lie here is a representation of a lack of imagination. It's somebody coming up with a cheaper story um, because they are not big enough, right? Because their vision isn't broad enough to actually hold the truth that all of us can handle. They don't believe in us. They probably at some deep level don't fully believe in themselves. And so they sell the cheapness and the low value calorie of disinformation, misinformation, and lies. And they're temporarily satisfying, but long term, they make us sick, collectively. So Joyce, thank you for standing in the light, for standing in the truth, for standing up for your people and your town. And I know that truth will come back around. All right, back. We got a whole another Jones coming up in here to tell another story of inspiration. Sean, back to you. Bring on this
Yeah,
next Jones.
without further ado, Justin Jones, Representative Jones, would you mind welcome to the stage, and would you mind introducing yourself to viewers?
Definitely. Well, it is an honor to be here with you all. And Brother Sean, when you're quoting the Lord of the Rings and that quote about there's goodness in the world, Mr. Froden is worth fighting for, it gave me goosebumps. Because one of the messages and just hearing Joyce's story, and I come from the afflicted state of Tennessee, that I want to lift up is that the South is worth fighting for. There's goodness here, that there's multiracial democracy that we're trying to build here in the South and is worth fighting for. And as you know, last year I served as the youngest Black lawmaker in our state here in Tennessee. And last year I was expelled. And I wouldn't call myself a hero, but I would say that I work with folks who emulate themselves based off of villains. When you are willing to put the profits of the gun industry of the lives of children, I would call that villainous behavior. When you are willing to look at profits over protecting our kids in schools from mass shootings, I would call that villainous behavior. And so what happened last year was we had a mass shooting that took the lives of 3 9-year-olds and 3 adults at a school here in Nashville. And rather than pass laws to ban assault weapons, my colleagues in the legislature chose to assault our democracy and chose to silence any type of discussion on gun violence, on the issues of the proliferation of guns in our schools. And so every time we would raise our hands, they would shut off our microphones, shut off our voting machines, say, you can't talk about that. Just have a moment of silence and move on. And what we had was thousands of young people gathered in our capital, young people who walked out of high school and middle school and college saying, we don't feel safe in our classrooms, filling up our Capitol Rotunda, filling up the balcony and saying, do something, do something. And so the next time they cut off our microphone, we did something out of the ordinary. And that was, I pulled a megaphone out of my pocket and said, we're not going to allow you to silence the voices of these students any longer. We're going to amplify their demands for common sense gun legislation that the majority of Americans, Republicans, Independents, Democrats, 70% of Americans support common sense gun laws, things like universal background checks, safe storage, red flag laws. And what did they do in response was they decided a few days later to expel us, to kick us out of our job and say that you are not welcome here. No matter what your constituents say, you're not supposed to be in this chamber anymore. And what happened is we saw a lot of heroes, young people, once again, rise up and march to our Capitol, shut down our Capitol, say, we are not going to allow this attack on our democracy to happen in the comfort of silence. And the very next day after we were expelled, another hero came, a powerful voice, whose name is Kamala Harris, came to Tennessee to stand with us. And it literally shifted the tide of what was happening in our state, where the Speaker of the House, a Republican extremist, felt all powerful, invincible, felt like we had kicked them out. We had no power. And when the Vice President came, it shifted the media, it shifted the focus, and let them know that we're not going to allow you to isolate them, but we stand as a community and we stand as a movement for multiracial democracy. And so that's what happened. And, a lot of, coming from the South, it's the birthplace of the KKK. And we had a lot of folks who would say the South's going to rise again. And I just want to say that's a lie, but I want to say that in this time that we have a new message that says the South is going to rise anew, that it's multiracial, it's multi-generational, it's multi-faith, it's pro-justice, it's pro-LGBTQ, pro-immigrant rights, pro-women reproductive justice. That's the South we're fighting for. And if we can change the South, we can change the nation. And this election cycle, I'm actually in Florida right now because I believe that we can see Florida being flipped. I was with the Orange County Democrats last night saying, let's get these young people out to the polls in our colleges. I was in North Carolina a couple weeks ago. The South has something to say, and if we can get these folks out and to vote in the South, we can change this nation and we can elect Madam President Kamala Harris. And so I just want to say power to the people because that's where the real heroes are. Thank y'all.
See, this is why we love you, Justin. Thank you for that. And that's the South we want to see rise, and it's been rising. It's not just the home of the KKK; it's the home of the Black Liberation Movement, which has been about the liberation of everybody else in this country. That's so much of it built on displacement and destruction and devastation, and the resistance to that, and the resilience in the face of that, and the creative response and the seeding of something else. Bro, you are so inspiring. Your voice is so just hearing, you're like, oh, I know this is that. I love hearing this voice. So I know they briefly silenced you, and yet you spoke so much louder with the people. I'm so glad to remember that was Vice President Harris who helped shift the vibe as she's doing for us in this moment right now. So thank you. I just had to address you directly and appreciate you.
Representative Jones, I was watching that story very closely. The whole country was watching that story, and the feeling that people have when they're watching movies, when they're standing and like in the theater and they're screaming at this, that's exactly how I felt watching that. And you lifted me up, you lifted up millions and millions of people, and I hope you and Joyce both just keep cranking. I think I need to, Baratunde, I think I need to make the next step. Is that?
Yes,
Okay.
you do. To the Joneses, no relation, but bonded in citizening and liberty and justice for all network. Thank you. And our next, we have some talk about making the perfect call, according to our lineup. And looks like we got three amazing people coming on. And I'll just name them, and Sean, you can keep carrying it forever. But Alex Vindman, a lot of us got to know during one of the impeachments. Just put it, just one of them. We got Jessica Denson, who's spoken truth to power in really dramatic whistleblowing fashion. We got Ron Perlman, who I will always think of as the head of my own personal MC, my own motorcycle club. Good to see you, Ron. I'll let y'all take it from here, but welcome to the stage.
Yeah, I think Ron, Ron, I'm where we met the first time. I'm in Ottawa. You and I met at this here was the first time I shook your hand, and then the last time I saw you was standing on a flatbed truck during the strike outside of Disney. and you, as you always do, put a pulse through the thousands of people gathered that was unmistakable. I know, I have so much that I could say about Alex Vindman, about Jessica Denson, but I want to let Ron, you talk, because I think you have some. You take the conversation wherever you want to in this moment, Ron. We're just grateful to have Hellboy in the house.
Well, thank you. I'm grateful to be here. Am I? Is everything working? Cameras?
Good. You're good.
Okay. I'm here because of Lieutenant Colonel Vindman. I got to know him as most of America did during that one of the many unfortunate assaults on all things that we at one point took for granted, regarding patriotism, regarding self-sacrifice, regarding all of the things that are part of the hero's journey. And with the arrival of Trump, we got to see all of those things completely belittled, in the name of, if you don't completely support me and agree with me, I will decimate you. And so Colonel Vindman was a recipient of that wrath. So I can't get him onto the screen fast enough. He's a true hero of mine. And because of Twitter, which I'm no longer on, but I am on Threads, little self promotion there. But I'm not on Twitter for an assortment of reasons that have so much to do with why we're all here today. I met Colonel Vindman. We broke bread together. I consider him a dear friend, and he's who invited me to participate here today. So great to see you, Alex.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Really quite an honor to be on with all these legends that I've seen on the big screen over the years. Frankly, bigger honor to be able to work with you all on a cause so important, which is electing Kamala Harris and Tim Walz as our next president and vice president. The urgency can't be overstated. The contrast between what we would face in a second Trump administration, perish the thought, and a Harris-Walz administration really can't be more stark. Some people think that if we take a look at the last the last 4 years of Donald Trump, it's something that we could survive. I'm not quite so sure. I think people tend to forget and have a little bit of nostalgia as time passes, that things weren't that bad. It was entertaining. We lived through it. The country survived. But 500,000 extra excess deaths as a result of COVID mismanagement. The economy was left in pretty dire straits, and a lot more people were being left behind. The country was not moving forward. That was in a circumstance in which Trump still had some adults in the room. He still had some guardrails. You might not agree with all the folks that were there in their more conservative brand of national security and foreign policy, but these were folks that were patriots and were focused on advancing U.S. national security interests. That is not what we would face in a second Trump administration. Trump has been emboldened. He believes that he could act with impunity, whether it's the decisions of SCOTUS and the decision to grant him absolute immunity for official acts, which he will take that and run with it as far as he can go. He will do that through Project 2025 and eliminating the civil service and the experienced class of public servants that are there to advance the public's interest. And he would do that by putting in loyalists that would carry through any and all of his deranged ideas. Would probably not scoff at injecting bleach as a treatment for COVID, or advancing some other absurd causes. Nuking hurricanes, remember that one? All sorts of crazy stuff. Inviting Russia to attack our allies in NATO. He would be a terrific friend to our traditional adversaries, the folks that want to destroy America, and he would inspire fear amongst our allies. So the contrast, we are under attack today. by forces that don't believe in democracy. Those are internal, external. The FBI just earlier this week indicted a number of folks that were party to a propaganda campaign to divide America and advance the candidacy of Donald Trump. And on the other hand, who do we have? We have Kamala Harris, and probably my favorite line from her is the fact that she's had only one client, which is the American people, something that Donald Trump has no idea about anything that's other than a service to himself. And Tim Walz, a coach, a career military career soldier that achieved the rank of sergeant major, command sergeant major, the highest enlisted rank. These are folks that are in it for their American people. But too many people don't get that. Too many people are not paying attention. And this group is elevating that conversation to ensure some additional folks get a chance to hear this. And we need to work diligently to make sure that we never face the threat of a second Trump administration, because that would be a hard thing to recover from. I'm happy to be here and join you all in kind of evangelizing that cause. Thank you for having me.
Colonel Vindman, Tammy was talking about the little boy who wasn't sure he could do anything. And one line in Lord of the Rings is that Gandalf says to Frodo is, even, the smallest person can change the fate of the world. And watching you risk everything by pointing out, by raising the, I don't know what the right thing, I don't like the word whistleblower, but by basically saying, hey, this is wrong, something, the president of the United States just did something wrong, and knowing that he's going to turn all of his attack dogs and all of his people who he can rile them up but can't control them, for you to stand there and that doing your testimony, as powerful as any movie I've ever seen.
All right, thanks, Sean. I'll tell you, I was not intimidated then.
No one gave you the lines. It's more.
Yeah. I would just say that we shouldn't be intimidated by him. He didn't intimidate me then. He doesn't intimidate me with his his obscene, absurd. What did he tweet yesterday? Something about cease and desist and all sorts of threats. He is not a strong man. He's a weak man that's pretending to be a strong man, and surrounding himself with all sorts of thugs. And we need to beat this down. He's a bully. We need to beat this down and move on and get past Trump and MAGA and start building a more perfect union, as has been the cause of so many for decades and centuries.
I think part of the most heartbreaking eventuality of the rise and soon the fall of this punk villain is what has been revealed about how few people have true courage, how few people will look losing everything in the face and go, yeah, but if it's for the greater good, to the oath I swore, if it's for the greater good to the country that my family came to from an oppressed place like yours did, then there's no comparison. And when you look at the entire to rise up right now and make sure that once and for all this scourge is obliterated, because it's an insult to courage. It's an insult to dignity. The Constitution embodies and stands for. Sorry to make a speech, but I learned that from you, Colonel Vindman, and I was so moved by watching your testimony, and I'm so thrilled to call you friend.
Thank you.
I mean, if for those of you watching, I mean, this exchange where people who've been able to achieve things with their life and their career and their hearts and their emotion and their creativity and everything else, to be paying honor to these real heroes, please push the button and donate. Please, this is one of those moments I talked about at the beginning of the thing. Like, this is why we're here. This is why these people are coming here, is to help understand these stories and have that reflected back in the amount of money we're going to be able to push to the campaign. So I want to bring in another person who was one of that trifecta, that you mentioned, Baratunde.
Yeah.
Where is Jessica? Jessica
Jessica
Denson.
Denson.
Yeah,
Yes.
Jessica Denson. There it
Another
is. Another
whistleblower.
yeah. I know that word whistleblower is like, it's an interesting word, but I've
Well,
watched you
here's
on.
another option. Here's another option instead of whistleblower. Um, Someone who upholds their oath. You know,
Yeah.
there's people who pledge allegiance to a person, to personal power, position, and privilege. And then there's people who say the words and mean it. When they pledge allegiance to a flag, to a constitution, to a greater interconnected story. And it's in that moment, that's where the courage shows up. And I think, to tie together what you've already shared here, Sean, and what we heard from Ron and from Alex is it is hard in those moments. You see some people just want to keep their heads down and don't, the right thing, but doing the right thing. It's hard. Spike made a whole movie called Do the Right Thing. It's hard to do the right thing. And it's easier to do the right thing when you see someone else doing it. And so what Alex has done,
Yes.
what Jessica has done, we'll learn about it, is to do that right thing and to serve, the people, not a person. So
It's
instead of
amazing
whistleblower,
that
thank you for
with
serving us.
with Jessica, it's amazing that the idea of being silenced is literally, her story deals with non-disclosure, with a contractual um, effort to suppress people's ability to tell the truth and to speak truth to power and to take those stands we're talking about. Jessica, welcome to the stage. Please share your story or take the conversation whatever direction you wish.
Thank you so much, Sean. You brought me to tears a few minutes ago with your monologue. I'm totally honored and starstruck. I will just be honest. I do a show every week, multiple times, but I'm really nervous for the first time in a long time. So I'm just going to put that out
You're
there.
among family. You're among family.
Thank you. And you can all be forgiven for not knowing who I am, because my story has kind of, although I've been fighting silence for going on 7 years, I've kind of been fighting a dual front of silence by my story not being shared. So you're all forgiven if you have no idea who I am, but I'm going to try to give you a really tight version of it. Basically, I lived in a Fox News echo chamber, daily mental malpractice from the Russian propaganda of right-wing news for 8 years, which led me to support and ultimately work for Donald Trump in 2016. For a brief time, I was the Hispanic engagement director for that campaign. I know that sounds like an oxymoron. It is, but that was my job before I got sabotaged and just utterly terrified and felt like the whole weight of that campaign was sitting on my shoulders. I was accused of federal crimes, accused of leaking Trump's taxes, all kinds of false stories to try to discredit and demean me. So anyway, long story short, walk away from this picture feeling like my life is under a dark cloud. And I had gone to the Trump campaign ignorantly, blindly, thinking that I could bring diverse support for this man out from the shadows. Walk away feeling like my whole life is in a dark shadow. And about a year later, wanting to walk away, wanting to be able to just, for nobody to ever know that Jessica Denson even worked for the Trump campaign. I kind of had an existential crisis and realized I had to confront this. And I didn't have time or the money to get a lawyer or the legal, resources and team together that I needed. And so in 2017, literally pro se on my own, I first sued the Trump campaign in a human rights lawsuit in New York State. Long story short, they came after me with an illegal non-disclosure agreement that I and every single other person on that Trump campaign had signed in 2016. It basically said you could not criticize Donald Trump for the rest of your life. It said that anything that he deemed confidential would be confidential. So we're all just out here supposed to guess what Donald Trump deems is confidential. And they came after me for $1.5 million for violating their NDA by bringing my human rights lawsuit. So what did I do? I got scared immediately, but then, as so many of these amazing speakers are describing today, I didn't retreat. I didn't back down. I said, oh yeah, you're gonna come after me and tell me to enter into your illegal arbitration? I don't think so, let me sue you again. So I sued them again pro se in federal court to invalidate the NDA. it took almost a year later for me to get my first two lawyers. The first thing we had to do was fight an illegal judgment that was entered against me for $50,000 for violating this NDA. It almost bankrupted me. A lot of this time that I was going through this, I didn't have a permanent place to live. It was incredibly frightening, but we defeated that illegal judgment. We sued them again in two class actions. And at the end of the day, what started off as one woman with no one but God and my mother on my side, I have this beautiful legal team that came together, and we invalidated every single non-disclosure agreement that was signed by any staffer in 2016, opening the way for people to speak the truth. To me, what these contracts have represented is the barrier between Donald Trump and accountability. That's what I have wanted people to see in my story from day one, is I have wanted them to see that as corrupt as our system seems right now, our judicial system, that it is possible to hold this man accountable. We have to use the laws that we have, and we have to be fearless in our pursuit of them. One thing that Alex was talking about was what a serious, serious place we are in as a country and what we are facing. And him and I think, faced a version of political persecution that is a real prospect. God forbid we allow Donald Trump to become president of this country again. I mean, I have so many friends, and human rights is such a special and dear thing to me, who are in this country because they are seeking political asylum from other countries where they cannot freely express themselves. Can you imagine? And I know there are people on this very call who feel like they may have to seek political asylum from the United States in another country if Donald Trump is reelected. These are the stakes. This is what we are facing. It may be incoherent rants about jailing his enemies that Donald Trump is posting on his Untruth Social account, but he has an apparatus of very dangerous, malicious, intellectually, smart. I hate even using that word, but they know what they're doing. These people that are propping him up in Project 2025. I know these people. I worked with them in 2016, and they are the worst because they have no moral guardrails, and they are willing to prop up a felon and a deranged person who seriously needs mental help. They're willing to put someone in power for their own ends and gains. So serious. So very grateful to be here. So grateful to support an extraordinary woman who has dedicated her life to pursuing justice, both from the prosecution angle and from the rehabilitation angle of the people caught up in the justice system. I mean, she is just a resounding example of what this country needs. Each one of us, you better believe I have doubted it so many times whether I mattered. Okay, it was the first hurdle I had to overcome back in 2017. There was so much self-doubt and thinking that who am I? Who's going to care about me? Why do I matter? Each one of us matters so much. And we just think about this. Like, history is literally going to be written about each one of us and what we are doing in this moment. It's an extraordinary honor. It is so serious, but I am so grateful that we all have this mantle to carry.
You're here. I mean, wow. So amazing to meet you and hear your story for the first time for me. My God, what a hero you are. And I'm going to stop. I just wanted to weigh in because I'm so moved by what you've done, what you've said, and what you're willing to stand for. So God bless you.
Don't go anywhere, Ron, because they're gonna call on you in a second here. But Jessica, I didn't say. I don't know if you were on at the very beginning when Baratunde invoked his mom, and I kind of was talking about something else. But I want to bring my mom down for a minute from heaven. She was 4'11" tall. Patty Duke was her name, famous actress, and she was a mighty warrioress. She was president of our union, and I just, watching you talk just now, I felt like she was, looking at you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I you
All of the
Jessica, you
angels are
called,
looking at you.
yeah. And I think I had to look up a word you said. Just be humble about my vocab. You said pro se. You filed these suits pro se. And I'm like, hello, internet. What does this mean? It means you represented yourself. Um, but I think it was the opposite spirit of what you described, of the more of the selfish people who are willing to go along with wrong to get a little something for themselves. You did it to literally free other people, from these really obscene terms and conditions that they were bound by with this campaign. So real hero stuff. And it took a lot for me to say stuff instead of the other word. Thanks.
The reverberations of that precedent are going to help people all across corporate America, all across all kinds of civil and criminal spaces. It just blows my mind how many types of disciplines and skill sets and qualities that are needing to be deployed. You almost want to like thank that guy, because look what he's doing. He's giving all of us this opportunity to show what we're capable of. And so we're going to send him back down to Florida or to whatever place he has to go once he's sentenced, and we can figure out what our next step is. But you matter to me. You obviously matter to everyone. Ron, I want to just ask
Hang on.
you.
Well, let me just say one thing. Only Donald Trump could get Dick Cheney to vote.
Yeah.
Yeah. I loved hearing that the only actual former vice president or former vice presidential Republican candidate, the only one to endorse Donald Trump, is Sarah Palin. That's it. That's it. That's the list.
Well, she'll be Secretary
That
of
says
State.
everything. That says everything.
Ron, I want to. So, Jessica, thank you, and I'm going to step to our next guest. And Ron, I have it written here that you might want to talk about Staff Sergeant Ganell.
Yes.
Yeah, Gaius. Sorry. Please.
Yes.
Please. This is the moment for that.
Sergeant Ganell, are you with us?
Yes.
There you are. Well, I don't want to take up any time whatsoever, because we're in the presence of greatness here, and we're in the presence of a symbol that we so desperately, really, really need to cling to. And if we're using the word heroism, this is the embodiment of it right here. Sergeant Aquilino Ganell was part of the January 6th melee, and we've gotten to know him since then. And it's just such a privilege to be able to express my gratitude to you for doing, without hesitation, what heroes do, at never ever once thinking about your personal consequences. And then watching so many of your colleagues take their own lives because of the ugliness of that day, and having to collect your thoughts and get in front of the January 6th committee and do things that you weren't asked to do or hired to do, has brought out qualities in you that I could never, ever thank you enough for. So I just want to start by expressing my undying gratitude to you for being you, and then for how you've comported yourself since that day. And the floor is yours, sir.
Well, thanks for having me and bringing me into your program. I think this is a great a show of force of how common people like myself make a great impact on people's lives, and also that we need to support the person that has a better character and morals than the other candidate that wants to pardon the same people who assaulted me on January 6th. I want to take just like Jessica Denson and also Alex Vindman. We all have been kind of like marked for because of what we did, because we stood up to do the right thing. And one thing that I want people to know and realize is that on January 6th, when I was fighting the mob, when I was battling those people, I wasn't thinking about democracy. I was just thinking about my colleagues, myself, and the elected officials that I've sworn off to defend. And that goes for each and every elected official, regardless what their party was or their ideology. To me, it didn't matter. All I cared was that I was doing what I signed up for, and it nearly cost me my life on that day. Unfortunately, the same people who I risked my life for, many of them, especially from the Republican side, they had chosen to back the same people who made them run for their safety. And if it wasn't because of us, the officers, they would have perished and they would have been killed. And they had did instead of denouncing that, they had condoned the attack and they backing the same person who put their lives at risk and our democracy as well. I wasn't born in this country, just like Vindman, but I had done a lot of things for this country. I did 8 years in the military. I went to Iraq, did one tour, and then I came back and I joined the police department with Capitol Police, and there I spent 17 years. So 25 years of my life out of 45 I had done to do things for a country that I was not even born in. And for the people who I thought would be grateful enough to see that immigrants made this country better, like myself. If you look at all the check boxes that Republicans say that they want a typical immigrant to be, I have met those criteria. Somebody who come here legally, somebody who assimilate, somebody who join the military, the police, and be a good example for the community. And I had done those things. And to this day, 2 years and a half later, after I couldn't no longer continue my path as a police officer, I still am involved with some of the ramifications of that horrible day, which tomorrow I had to be meeting with the FBI about another case. I was assaulted by more than 40 people on January 6th. If I'm not mistaken, probably like around 60 or 70. But I still, even though I'm not a police officer, I'm still invested because there are so many trial cases that still involve me. And tomorrow is going to be no difference.
Sergeant Gunnell, I just want to jump in very briefly and express appreciation personally and deeply. And I think, it's shocking to hear and just even feel you're still recovering from the assault. Like we were taking on 60-1 is intense and incredible. I want to point people to the fact that you have a book that you've written about this experience, American Shield, the immigrant sergeant who defended democracy. I know it's been a challenge for you. All of the funds that we're raising here are going to the Harris campaign. But I would feel remiss in not pointing out that you have a fundraiser of your own that people should look for in the GoFundMe universe, because you are not being taken care of as much as you should be. And so all who are moved by your story, by your contribution, as I am, I'm sure will be given to both causes this afternoon and this evening. And just from the bottom of my heart, thank you for all of us.
I appreciate.
Thanks for pointing that out, Baratunde. I just want to say that the fact that you simply performing what you needed to perform in order to uphold the oath that you took. The fact that that's interpreted as anything other than the greatest qualities that this country can engender, or that claims to be a patriot can engender, that it's interpreted in any kind of negative way, which we've watched happen to all you guys who were there that day and who bled and who had their brains and their sensibilities knocked out of them, be dragged through the mud because they that in itself is representative of the plague that we're up against, that this election is representing in such large measure, that you can interpret what you are and what you did as anything but the greatest form of Americanism, means that America is in a really, really tenuous place right now. And you are to be thanked for putting yourself on the line, your safety and yourself on the line, by continuing to come out and remind us of the insanity that we can look at your acts on that day as anything other than just thank you. We're grateful. You did what you were supposed to do. The fact that we're is indicative of how important this election is and what a tipping point that this country is at. A lot of people don't even realize the danger we're facing by
part of the calculation that I see when I'm asked, why am I supporting Kamala Harris and Tim Walz's campaign over Donald Trump? I tell them, well, how will you feel if you get attacked by more than 40 people at work or at your house? And then they turn around and tell you that they support that, or that they didn't mean it, or that it didn't happen to you. Why would I support somebody who took my career, took my physical health, took my friends as a result of what happened on that day? And these are things that are coming from the same people who tell me publicly, or they get on TV and whatnot in front of a camera and say, we support the police, we support the law and order, we support the rule of law. How can you do that or try to convince me that you are, when the guy who put all our lives at risk, and he's dangling pardons for the same people who injured me, or the same person who made them run for their life, and if it wasn't because of us, they would have died. So it is ironic and that they themselves also tell me that I'm the traitor, because I'm attesting to what happened, because I'm telling people what happened to me and to my colleagues. They made that decision for me to come forward to speak against Donald Trump because they turned their back on me. They they always say, we back the blue, we're not, but that's a cool slogan for them, when they don't actually mean. They support those people, except for Capitol Police and those officers who responded to defend the Capitol. And that's very shameful of them. I did what I did, not because I wanted a presidential medal or a gold medal from Congress. I did it because it was my job to do it. And if that was another group, any other group, I would have done the same thing. I didn't care who was attacking the Capitol. All I knew was the Capitol was being overrun by people. And the last time I checked, the banner that they were doing that under was Donald Trump. And therefore, those were not the feds, those were not Antifa, those were not Black Lives Matters, those were his supporters. And they tried to equate some of the things that happened in 2020. Well, 2020, the riots and things like that, those things would could have happened. They could have taken the whole city, and that still would not have equated to the end of our democracy, like they're planning to do or try to do on January 6th. But they had to live with themselves. I know what I did. I did it because it was my duty. I kept my oath, both as in the military and as a police officer. And whether they see me as a villain or hero, that's up to them. I know I did what I was supposed to do, and if they fail to see that, they have bigger problems, and than reality.
Well, we don't fail to see it, and they have really. We can't tolerate such an assault on the things that people like you.
One thing that
safety,
guys, we're going to move to our next guest, but I just have to say something to you, Sergeant Gano. Well, in my master's degree, public administration, public policy, I took one class on administrative law, so I'm no expert on this. I'm no constitutional lawyer. But what the President of the United States did was seditious, and it should disqualify him from ever holding any office of public trust in this country. It should be a 50-state blowout. The fact that there is it's not ironic. It is shameful. But the fact that there's a bunch of gaslighting maniacs who want us to pretend as though we didn't see what we saw. And we didn't know the consequences, the potential consequences. I mean, unfortunately, some people lack the creative imagination to project what might have happened if you didn't do what you did. It could have gone really bad. They could have used that moment to do awful, awful things. So I'll say one other thing. I was in Wisconsin, and the campaign sent us some polling data on what the most important issues were to the Wisconsinites. And the number one was the economy at 36%. But number two at 14.7% was protecting democracy. So I happen to know in Wisconsin specifically, there are people who care very deeply about making sure that we have your back and your colleagues' back.
Appreciate it. It means a lot because a lot of times we hear the loudest voices, and the loudest voices, obviously, we know who that is, even though it's not coherent or with any substance behind it. But those are the type of people we hear, and hearing from you guys, and is very informative and very support, because the moral injury is still there, the trauma is still there. And we did what we supposed to do. We did how we were expected to do, even though we were outnumbered 58-1 on that day. And we did our best to keep everybody safe, regardless whether your representative was AOC or Marjorie Taylor Greene or Mitch McConnell or Chuck Schumer, whoever. We were doing our job, what it was expected of us. And I hope you guys also can go to my website, aquilinogonel.com, learn a little bit about me and what I have been doing since January 6th. I greatly, greatly appreciate if you guys also post the GoFundMe as well.
Sergeant Gano, thank you for on behalf of everyone here, thank you for your service. And you speak the language of hero when you say, I'm doing my job, when you say that you're there for your colleagues. This is the essence of heroism, and you embody it. So thank you very much. We have a good long list of people who are waiting. So I want to move to our next guest, if that's okay. I'm not sure if the person's here. I'm looking backstage. Is Alex here?
Sean, we have a adjustment to our program.
Okay.
And so we'll do this relay thing. I confess I'm dialing in from Paris. I'm not auditioning for a new nation. I promise. I was just checking out the healthcare system. It's dope. And so the Olympics just wrapped here. So we'll do this relay style. And because of some timing, this happens on these super Zooms. We are going to get into our climate conversation. And I think we're so many of these stories that we're talking about, these stories of heroes, usually not individuals, but collectives and fellowships, are about literally saving the world. And we have an opportunity to do that right now. That is the best way to look at the climate crisis and the climate emergency, that we have been granted a beautiful opportunity to save ourselves, to save all of our relations with the human and more than human worlds. And there are some folks who have been working on this for a very long time, including people who've been doing it since time immemorial and gifted us some great democracy seeds right here in the land of the United States. But before I get to all that, I know you got to go very soon. Bill McKibben, 350.org, Gandhi Peace Award winner, Middlebury College professor, and just hero, real life, helping save the world like an actual Avenger. Hello, welcome to the stage.
Well, Baratunde, thank you. What a pleasure to be with you. I'm the opposite of a hero. My only real talents seem to be writing books and going to jail. I just want to say two or three quick things. First of all, what a great call this is, and what a good way to get at these questions. Look, climate change is now moving into its epic phase. The last 18 months have been the hottest stretch of weather on our planet in at least the last 125,000 years. We are unleashing forces that even Superman could not reverse. Huge glaciers melting, sea levels rising, coral reefs disappearing, vast storms appearing. If we go any farther down this path, then we have no way out. But we are doing good things now, finally, in this country. We're watching suddenly, thanks to the Inflation Reduction Act, the deployment of lots of clean, renewable energy. And if we can keep that up for 4 more years, then we will be in a different place. We'll begin to see the solutions begin to emerge. If we turn our back on that, then all the momentum will be stalled at precisely the worst moment. The climate scientists, just like in an action movie, have given us a deadline. They say we need to cut emissions in half by 2030. The next president leaves office in January of 2029. So this is the election that counts. Second thing I want to say is just there are so many heroes out there. I've spent the last couple of years organizing this thing we call Third Act, that organizes old people like me, people over the age of 60, for action on climate and democracy. And these people have gone to prison in the hundreds and hundreds, thousands now, to make these points about climate, but they've also deeply engaged in this electoral fight in the deepest way. I'm going to tell you just a quick story. I was at an assisted living community not long ago, and I gave a talk to a bunch of people. And then they took me up to the kind of medical wing. One of the things we do is write postcards into swing states. We're writing 200,000 a week now around the country because we've got 80,000 volunteers hard at work. They took me up into the medical wing, and there was a 97-year-old lady there who could not get out of bed anymore, but she was still writing 10 and 15 postcards a day to send off into the world because she very much wanted to have an impact on the world that she loved around her still at the very end. And if that's not heroic, I don't know what is. Third thing I want to say, and last thing I want to say is, the point of all this is, though it should not matter, money is one of the things that defines our political system. It should not. We should have a system like most of the other ones in the world where you can't, get a bunch of billionaires to buy your way into office, but it does. So we need money to do the next 55 days, and we need people to step up. And along with all the other things we're doing, we need people to step up and do that. And here would be the way I would say it. Our planet is now way outside its comfort zone. That's what it means when the poles, north and south, are melting. Our democracy is way outside its comfort zone. That's what it means when thousands of people invade the nation's capital, killing police officers to stop the counting of votes. So we need to be outside our comfort zones too when it comes to taking this on. And some of the time, yeah, that means things like civil disobedience, but some of the time it just means ponying up. And everybody knows what their comfort zone is. If it doesn't feel like it wouldn't hurt very much to give $100, then start thinking about what it might feel like to give 250 or 500 or 1,000 or whatever, because we are in the home stretch here. And we're talking a lot about the kind of things we're trying to avoid and the outcome we're trying to avoid, because we spent 4 years looking at it. And as Alex Vindman said, it's going to be worse next time. But let's just talk for a minute about the joy that we could unleash on election night. We could have, I mean, I'm an old person. We could have a woman president in this country for the first time ever. That's kind of unbelievable. We're not focused on it so much because the horror of Donald Trump is so powerful that that's just like a transfixing object that, hypnotizes us. But this could be an amazing moment. We could have a woman president, and we could have a school teacher as the vice president of the United States. That's exciting too. Those are the kind of heroes that we desperately, desperately need. So what a pleasure to get to join you all and just say thanks to everybody for all the things they're doing.
Well, Bill, don't go away just yet. I want to bring in someone else to help hold this energy that you've asked of us and offered to us. Thanks for naming the financial, that form of energy that we need to channel and combine forces like Voltron in this particular moment. Thanks for naming the joyful possibility that we can create for ourselves and being in right relationship, I would add, with the planet. That is an invitation that we have now. And you talked about it, we're so out of balance, and not even Superman it has the strength. I can think of a hero who has a bit more strength than Superman, and that would be Hulk. And the person who plays Hulk, super strength of his own, right here in human mortal form, Mark Ruffalo. Please come on in to the stage, and just want to share the stage with you, have some moments with Bill. I know he's tight on time and we have more climate to discuss, but welcome to the party and thank you.
Thank you, Baratunde, and thanks, Uncle Bill. Bill McKibben's been leading the charge on this for so many of us for so long. We met during the fight against fracking in New York State, where we were the first and only state to ban fracking, and it happened because of organizing and people coming together and fighting. And Kamala's slogan, "When we fight, we win," was born out of that movement. I mean, it was the manifestation of that slogan, and it's the truth. I'm so grateful to be here with all you sheroes and heroes. You're the real life heroes. I mean, I just play one on in the movies, but you really are it. Judith LeBlanc is here, who's a solutions grantee, the Solutions Project grantee. She's been fighting climate justice, and just on climate justice, this past administration has been one of the best. We have so much happening, so much good news on climate change with the Inflation Reduction Act, with the push out of heat pumps and AC that's powered by electricity, and electric vehicles. I mean, these things that we don't hear about every day. We hear all the bad things. I want to talk about hope. And I want to read a quote by Howard Zinn. It says, "To be hopeful in bad times is not just foolishly romantic. It is based on the fact that human history is a history not only of cruelty, but of compassion, sacrifice, courage, and kindness. What we choose to emphasize in this complex history will determine our lives. If those times and place, if we see only the worst, it destroys our capacity to do something. if we remember those times and places, and there are so many where people have behaved magnificently, this gives us the energy to act, and at least the possibility of sending the spinning top of a world into a different direction. And if we do act, in however small a way, we don't have to wait for some grand utopian future. The future is an infinite succession of presents. And to live now as we think human beings should live, in defiance of all that is bad around us, is itself a marvelous story. And I think we really have to hold that space right now, because even within the Democratic Party, we have a lot of there's a lot of conflict within us now. The way people feel about climate change, the way people feel about justice, there's so much work still to be done. But when you're a superhero, you're part of a family. And that family transcends its differences to fight for what is right. And that's the moment we're living in right now. We are in an existential threat today. We are an existential threat. Our existence is in threat. And we have to address climate change. And Bill is right. We have 4 years. We have to close this window in these 4 years. So I don't care how you feel about Biden. I don't care how you feel about Kamala. I don't care. I hear time and time again, well, this, well, that, well, this, well, that. Yes, that's true. But we have to be politically mature. And we have to come together and fight for what's right, because there is a force of bad and there is a force of good. And we know the difference. So don't sit back. Hulk smash that donate button right now. Hulk smash that donate button. And there's all kinds of ways to organize. Take your family to the polls. Take your friends to the polls. Walk together, show up together, and don't let the bastards intimidate us. We have to show courage right now. They want to intimidate us. The bad guys want us to feel like it doesn't matter. They want us to be divided within our own ranks. They want to peel us off. And Elon Musk is such a two-faced turncoat traitor, because he was a climate champion. And he sold himself out for a buck and some power. Don't follow that guy. That guy doesn't even have his original accent anymore. Don't follow him. Don't listen to him. We're the ones who we have to believe in. We're the ones who we're waiting for, and we are the ones that have to move forward together. I love you all. You're the best in the world. And we're fighting not only for this in America, we're fighting for the whole world here. All right. That's
Hey,
all.
Mark, I've got to take off because I've got to go. I'm here in Montana.
Bill.
We're working for John Tester too, and there's a lot of down ballot races that really matter. But I just want to say you summed it up perfectly. Our choice is between a superhero movie and a disaster movie, and I know which one I want. So, so many thanks to everybody for getting it together for the next 58 days. As Tim Waltz said, we'll sleep when we die. So, back to work.
Thank you, Bill. Get out there, and it's a great reminder to vote, from the bottom up and the middle out. And if you don't have access to the voting franchise, volunteer, phone bank, donate money, donate time, donate attention. Mark, stick around. We're going to continue this climate conversation. There were so many threads pulled up, and we'll bring Judith on in just a second. I want to set up this transition to say, that yes, we are in a crisis. We have this great opportunity. And, when you think of the joy and think of the possible world we could be living in, there are people who have lived in that world. The first people who carried some deep first principles that allow us all to be here in terms of the indigenous people of not just the United States, but the Americas and indeed every land in the world. 80% of the world's biodiversity held and stewarded by indigenous nations who only have 5%, of the total land because of colonial policies over so much time. When we look at our own democracy, we have this confluence of democracy imbalance and climate imbalance, and that's not accidental. We have fallen out of balance with our partners in this, the natural world and the earth, seeking extraction only. And indigenous folks have been here to show a different and better way, have always been for our own founders in this country, an undertold story that the democracy that we celebrate today was truly seeded by them in the form of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, the Five Nations. And that's something I won't get too deeply into, but find the book, Indian Roots of American Democracy, and dust off some untold history that really shows that what we're suffering from and have an opportunity to regain is a right relationship with each other and the natural world at the same time. And so we can do better, by the indigenous folk of our land, as they are doing incredible by and for all of us. And Judith LeBlanc is one of those people, nationally recognized Native American activist, organizer of Native Organizers Alliance. And I just want to welcome you, Caddo Nation of Oklahoma. Judith, welcome to the stage as a powerful advocate for indigenous rights, environmental justice, and decolonization efforts. These are all intertwined.
I don't see Judith.
No, we don't have Judith. Well, I carried as much Judith into the room as I could to try to share that message. And
I'm here.
There
there
she
you
is.
are.
I may be
Great.
late, but I'm here.
There she
No, you're
is.
right on time. Judith is right on time. Let's get that camera on and let's get that split screen. Yeah, Native Organizers Alliance. I can see the people in the back channels in the engineering and control room bringing you on. Welcome.
I'm so happy and proud to be a part of this conversation. And the organizers of this call understand the political moment. This is not about one election. We have to build a movement between now and Election Day that is prepared to look towards the horizon, to understand that the problems we face will not be solved in one election cycle, be it the threat to democracy or the threat to Mother Earth. And that idea, and the idea that Mark brought up, is so truly, in its essence, an indigenous framework, that there's only one place in time where the past and the future come together. And that is in the present. So that it makes a difference how we walk in the present, because we are all carrying our ancestral responsibilities, but we're also carrying the hopes and the dreams for a better life for our descendants. And this program that was organized, I think, highlights the fact that everyone has a role, every community has a role, every person can make a role for themselves to be a part of this larger circle. Whether you risk your career to speak out, or you live on an Indian reservation and you are struggling after 100 years of having citizenship forced on us, we are still struggling for the right to vote. And that is a fact for everything from language to distance, to polling places, to poor infrastructure, meaning a lack of consistent mail service, all the way to state legislators and secretaries of state deciding at the last minute that they're not going to put up a polling place that has been used for decades. So we face obstacles, but this is the thing. If we are looking at the horizon in Indian country, we have to be, because of the responsibilities we carry in the present. If we are looking forward, then we will not get tired. We will see that we have to pace ourselves. And between now and 55 days, what we're doing in Indian country is putting hundreds of moccasins on the ground to register people to vote, to educate the voters about what the issues are and to get them to the polls and to defend the results of the election. Because that's what we're up against. We have a mass movement in this country, an anti-democracy movement that has millions that are being swayed in that direction. It's not the man, it's the plan. You know, I'm an elder. I came up in the 70s and the 60s where that phrase meant something. It's the plan, not the man. And so if we pace ourselves and have that understanding, then we know that we have to nurture at the grassroots level. We have to use the power of narrative. We have to use the power of culture and art, but we also have to use the power of community. Look, Native people only continue to exist for one reason. We've been organizing since dirt. Plain and simple. We've been organizing. And when it comes to looking at the environmental justice struggles for the last 20 years, every single struggle has been led and initiated by Indigenous people. And, you know, I love Bill because we were shoulder to shoulder for 10 years to stop the KXL pipeline. And there were quite a number of you who sided with us. But that 10 years had highs and lows. It wasn't one big march to glory. It took people testifying, getting at hearings, public comment. It took legal struggles, which the tribes bore the weight of because we are sovereign nations. I'm a dual citizen, a citizen of the US and of the Caddo Nation. And we exercise the power of having that dual citizenship. There were times when we thought we lost. There were times when people had babies, and now those babies are grown up and they know that it took 10 years on the ground, white farmers and ranchers, tribal leaders, and Native community organizers to win, to stay the course, to understand that each have a role, and to be able to go beyond our immediate communities to bring the people who share in their concern water together. And that's how it was won. And we used the elections, the electoral arena, to drive power. Because on election day, and I will end with this, on election day in Indian country, we will have a historic voting turnout. And you know why I know that? We are Native Organizers Alliance is running a moccasins on the ground program. We've done it for the last 4 years. We call it the Native Organizers Alliance Organizing Fellows Program. I just got off the plane from Chicago. We're having 2 back-to-back 2-day trainings, bringing the moccasins on the ground from 11 states, most of them battleground states, together to talk about how are we going to deal with mobilizing the Native vote. Majority of our people are not registered. But when you look at Arizona, almost the same exact amount of Navajos who voted in 2020 was almost the exact number that turned the tide for President Biden. When you look at Senator Tester last time went to sleep thinking he lost. When the vote came in from northern Montana, it was the Native vote that turned the tide. The margins, the stakes are so high, but the margin is very, very thin. So the Native vote is one of those communities, along with Black and labor and the women's movement and the LGBTQ rights. If we go at it from the angle of we can turn the tide and that we will put everything into it that we can because of our ancestors, because of our descendants, then we will have the outcome that is necessary. Because you know what? We need a lot more time, not just 4 years to solve the problem of climate crisis. We need a lot more time to achieve sovereignty. And sovereignty and self-determination for Native peoples as dual citizens, we will not be able to achieve without a more deeply democratic political system and a more deeply democratic economic system that's driven by human needs, not profit and greed. So I thank you so much for allowing me to come here because when I got off that plane, the only voice in my head was a woman in Nevada who had worked with us on 2020, thought she was going to sit this out. When Kamala was nominated, her 10-year-old daughter said, "What you going to do on the elections? We're going to have a woman of color." And, it motivated her mom to say, yeah, I'm going to sign up with Native Organizers Alliance. I'm going to do what I can. So that's happening all over Indian country, all over the country, no matter what community. And I think there is room for hope.
Judith, my goodness, thank you so very much. There's absolutely room for hope. And I think it often goes without saying, we heard from someone who wasn't even born in this country, who sacrificed so much in the form of Sergeant Gonell a bit earlier. And now we're hearing from someone whose people preceded this country, have been so formally done wrong. A nation of laws that hasn't honored a single treaty that it's initiated in the long history. And yet there is this commitment, this interdependent commitment still being so firmly and strongly demonstrated, as you so eloquently laid out. Thank you again for being here. Do you want to add anything, Mark, Sean, before we move on to our next guest?
I just say I appreciate the wisdom and the resilience that was just on display. All those thoughts, all that story. It's just hard won over an entire lifetime, and just to bring it to us in that way and to sanctify what we're trying to communicate here is really appreciated.
I just wanted to add, at Standing Rock, we were losing. There was a horrible moment, right, Judith? And it looked like we were going to lose, and it looked like violence. I mean, violence was coming in, but from the United States government. I mean, real violence, weapons of war, and I never felt that kind of hatred that was being displayed. And we were I was invited to a sweat, and I was expressing my grief and sadness and fear. And someone in the dark said, "Ah, brother Mark, now you know what it's like to be a native. We've been living with this for over 100 years, and you know what? We're still here. And you know what? We've already won." And
yes,
yes, Judith, it's that long road that you're talking about. It's that seventh generation that we're moving towards. Anyway, I love you, Judith.
I just want to say that Standing Rock was an interruption of the dominant narrative that allowed for our people to have the chance to elect the first 2 Indian women to Congress, which was only in 2018. We never had our Barbara Lee or our Maxine Waters until 2018. And then we mobilized the hell out of 2020.
Yeah.
And we said to President Biden's transition team,
and
we got to be in the circle.
Oh my goodness. And speaking of circles, I'm going to bring this circle to a beautiful close. Judith LeBlanc, Caddo Nation in the house, U.S. Nation in the house at the same time. Mark Ruffalo, thank you, brother. Hulk smash. We have achieved at least $20,000 in our fundraising. We have a $2,000 matching offer for what comes in the next wave here, and quite a wave it will be. We're shuffling the deck. We're improvising. We're two-stepping because we have the California congressman from the 30th, Adam Schiff, is in the building. Soon to be Senator Schiff is in the building. Can we get soon to be Senator on stage here, and let's hear what is going on. Hello.
How you doing today?
Good. Thank you so much, Adam.
It's great to be with you. Great to be with you. And thank you to everybody that's online. You're all heroes in my book. And just for being engaged, participating, making sure that this country moves into a bright new future, and we never go back, as Vice President Harris says. Great to be with you, heroes. And I wanted to just take a moment to talk about this fragile moment in our history when, for our entire lives, we have become used to seeing new democracies being born and walls coming down, our freedoms expanding. We came to think of this as inevitable, like the laws of gravity. And then suddenly we started to see that, no, there was nothing inevitable about this. We started to see new autocracies being born. We started to see our freedoms at home recede instead of expand. And we've, I think, come to appreciate that no generation gets a pass. We all have to do our part to defend this incredible legacy. We have to have our own struggle for our democracy, our rights, and our freedoms. Thankfully, we don't have to go off to war like our parents and grandparents may have had to in World War II. But nonetheless, we have our own responsibility. And I was asked to share a few thoughts on a hero of mine and how that may shed light on today. And, one of my heroes is Atticus Finch from To Kill a Mockingbird. That role made me want to be a lawyer. And what I so admired about his character, both the character in the book and in the film, but also his character, is this was somebody who appealed to the best in people. Who went into that courtroom to fight injustice and bigotry, but did so by appealing to the best in people, and never lost faith in America, never lost faith in the ability to move forward as a country. I think we're going to see the same thing with Vice President Harris when she goes into that debate. She's going to appeal to the best in the country. She's going to help make the case for why we need to move forward. How we are a big, beautiful, resilient country. We can get through this. To share a different courtroom story during the first impeachment, I used to use the last few minutes of each day to try to summarize something significant that came out during the day. And on one of the final days of our case, one of my staff stopped me and said, they think you proved him guilty. They need to know why she should be removed, why the president should be removed, which was kind of a revelation to me. After all, that meant we had proven he had withheld hundreds of millions of dollars from an ally, Ukraine, at war with an adversary, Russia, in order to get that country to help him cheat in the election. And that wasn't enough. We needed to somehow show more. And I pivoted to a different kind of argument, that this was somebody who did not know right from wrong, somebody incapable of telling the truth, somebody fundamentally indecent, and you could not leave someone like that running the country. Not because he couldn't tell right from wrong, not because he was incapable of telling the truth and fundamentally, basically indecent, but because we know right from wrong, and we have a commitment to the truth, and we are decent people. He is not who we are. He is not who we are. And what I think has been so powerful about this incredible ticket of Harrison Walls is it is reminding people of our better angels and who we are as a nation. It is bringing joy back into the political process and optimism, but they can't do it on their own. We've got precious few days left until the election. If you haven't given already, hit that donate button and give again. And if you have given, hit it again and give again. One thing we want to be sure, every one of us, and that is that 58 or 59 or whatever, how many days we have left from now, when 8 o'clock hits, that we have put everything out there, that we have held nothing back, that however the result may be, and it is darn close right now, it is terrifyingly close, that we know we did everything, that we can tell our kids and our grandkids that we did everything to protect our democracy, to pass on this incredible legacy, this wonderful country that we've been given by those who came before. And so so grateful to all you heroes on the screen, heroes on the Zoom screen. Speaker Pelosi likes to say, know your own power, and you all have superpowers. Your superpower is to be engaged and to influence the circle around you. And I'm just proud to be with you and grateful for this chance to say hello. Thanks so much, everybody.
You have a superpower, Adam Schiff. I think this country is, when you look back over this horrifying 9 years, you're going to be one of those voices that just, you and Raskin, and it's just unbelievable. We were saying earlier in this call that there's so many different kinds of skill sets and talents that are being pressed into service by being, harmed unfairly, unnecessarily, or whatever. And the skill set that you have, that you put on display during that trial was it's just really impressive. Well, can you just say one little thing about where, everyone hates money in politics. When we talk about it, it's like the one thing I think everybody can agree on is how gross it is. And yet everybody also knows how absolutely necessary it is. But a couple of people are asking earlier, like, where does it go? I know where some of the victory fund money goes, things like protecting for recounts and legal battles and that kind of stuff, and the convention. But when you donate to the president's fund, what is that? I mean, offices, what's the money used for?
Well, really, I think you outlined some of the most important purposes, which is you need to make sure that people aren't disenfranchised. That those who are entitled to vote have the ability to vote. If they've had their voter registration purged, that they have an opportunity to get it unpurged. If they have to confront these new strict voter ID laws, that they have whatever they need to access the franchise. That's a really important investment by the presidential campaign. But also, grassroots, helping to support people out there, knocking on doors, making the calls, paying for the text messages to go out, and keeping the lights on so that that communication goes on. And of course, fighting back against all the attacks that are coming. And, the real David and Goliath story here is they've got a handful of people that can put in $50 million or $100 million, the Elon Musks of the world. What we have is we have all of you. We've got these incredible superheroes that put in $5, $10, $15, $30 or $100, but there are so many of them that they are more than the equal of these, these billionaires, the Koch brothers and their ilk. That's what we've got going for us. And what's more, it really matters the quality of the candidates. It's not just about the resources. It's about, the quality of the candidates, the quality of the message. And we are the winners on all of that, hands down. But those resources that people are donating right now, Sean, they're going to get the message out and do those vital GOTV efforts during that last few days of the campaign, because there aren't that many undecideds left. There are, still a few million, and that's sizable in a race that's going to come down to potentially a few tens of thousands. But at the end of the day, this is about turning out your supporters. If your supporters turn out, you win. If they stay home, you lose. And so a lot is going to go into those last few days.
We are not staying home. We are turning out soon to be senator, current representative, always hero for the people, Adam Schiff. Thank you so very much for making time to be with us right now.
Thanks for including me.
Yes, we are going to turn back the hands of time / turn them forward. We are moving to a moment of excellence, shall we say. Alex Winter, are you in
I'm here.
the building? Yes. Yes.
Are you in Paris? It's late.
Yes, yes. It is quite late. Or is it early?
Amazing.
Alex, I was going to read our little bio, like 4-sentence bio on you, but you want to just go and launch yourself, or you want?
I can. It's great to see you, and Congressman, it's so great to see you and hear you. I always, whenever I get to see or hear Adam Schiff speak, I always feel better. So everything's going to be okay. I know it's down to us doing all this work, but it's going to be okay. As everyone has said on this amazing thing, I'm not a hero. I'm like the old TV commercial. I play one on TV, right? And but what it does do, which I think those of us who've acted in things that are deemed heroic, is it puts you in immediate contact with your fan base and with people all over the world, right? And so I was thinking about this in the context of Bill and Ted, because this has been my life since 1987, and I've done a lot of other things, but this is how I'm viewed by people on the street anywhere in the world. And I was thinking, I jotted some thoughts down, but the sort of essence of it, the heroic spirit of the Bill and Ted franchise, expressed by these two simple knuckleheaded characters. It's broken barriers for me as Bill and for the fans, and it's impacted people in disparate cultures worldwide, from old folks to little kids. And that positivity, which is what it is reflected wherever I go, and it can be quite moving. And yeah, it starts with our simple axiom, be excellent to each other. And what does that mean? It means to come from a place of compassion for oneself, for others, including folks we may not agree with or understand. And why do that? And that, I think, is to create the possibility of a better world. That's what it is in the Bill and Ted universe. And in our world, we live in a fraught and complicated time. We have thorny issues that are not going to get solved quickly and without pain. But we have no hope of meeting those challenges without a functioning democracy that allows everyone to have a voice, to play a part, to offer and implement solutions. And our democracy is facing a serious threat from Donald Trump and an authoritarian government that he wants to implement. And that's one of the many reasons I support Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. I believe to the democratic process, to the American ideal of a system that gives voice and agency to all. And this is a system made up of broad and diverse people of all walks of life who don't always agree, who don't always understand or even like one another, but who can fight for what they believe is right and ultimately make a better country and a better world. For those people on the fence, the undecideds, as Schiff was talking about, who may even consider these two presidential candidates to be the same, which is bananas to me. I just think it's important to understand the magnitude of the threat of potentially having a dictator controlling the US. And Trump has blatantly stated his aim to dismantle the democratic process. Without democracy, none of us have agency, none of us are safe. And if, like me, you care about climate issues, reproductive rights for women, or marginalized groups who are under attack, like trans people, if you care about a ceasefire in Gaza and supporting the people of Ukraine and in other war-torn countries, you can't take meaningful action if the US has abandoned the democratic process, as Donald Trump has promised to do on day one. I think the essence of it is that being excellent to each other isn't as simple as it sounds. It can be easier to remain divided. Being excellent to each other requires a commitment to doing the work that makes a better, more equitable and unified world possible. It's a world where we have the freedom for that second half of the Bill and Ted axiom to party on, dudes. And on that note of pure cringe, which is my right as a card-carrying member of Gen X, I just ask you to please donate to the Harris-Walz campaign. Do your part to help them win the White House, preserve democracy, so we can build a better future together. And that's my wrap. Thank you.
That is a really excellent wrap. I'm going to say excellent way too much, and that is my cringe gift back to you. Alex, thank you so much for taking the time and for making the call, to making the invitation for folks to give in this moment. So
it's so important.
We be able to actually be able to disagree with each other. And we're looking at a zone of discomfort beyond mere disagreement, but to truly not being able to coexist together in the way that we should be able to. So thank you so much for joining us here.
Thanks all of you. You're all heroes in my book.
Yay. All right, we are moving along. We're finally getting the pace down in the back third of this event. These things are truly marathons, and I have not hydrated enough. So I'm going to be a model human. There we go. Water is life. Now we have someone who I could run off a massive introduction for, but we don't need that, and we don't have time for that. I'm just going to say these magic words. Mandy Patinkin is in the building. Yes. I feel like I'm just conjuring people through my computer screen. This is too much power for one human to have.
Thank you for
Glad
having
to share
us.
it with you, Sean. Thank you for being here. Where are you in this moment, and what would you like to share with us? And I will encourage, any Inigo Montoya references, not required, but definitely encouraged.
Thank you. I'm in upstate New York. My dog's behind me. My son's in front of me, always helping me, guiding me, connecting me.
You're doing great, Dad.
Thanks, bro. My grandchildren, my 2.5-year-old grandson, my 3-week-old new granddaughter are just down the road. I'm here for them, for all of us, all of you who have children, grandchildren, thinking about having children, our country, our democracy, everything we believe in. I'm here for the truth. I'm here for how the truth affects me. I need to share with you a little reason why the truth is so important to me, almost to a fault. I can't bear it when I hear lies, and we've heard so many. It's become second nature to too many individuals and systems of this country. I was 18 years old. I got a phone call from home saying Daddy has cancer. He has pancreatic cancer. But he's worried about it because he broke his neck when he was a kid, and everybody was worried to tell him the truth. So we're going to tell him he has hepatitis. A lie. My father was no idiot. He did the research pretty quick, and he knew within moments that he didn't have hepatitis. But the elders told me to keep this up, and the doctors. And at 18 years old, I bought into this. And I never got to sit with my father and tell him the truth. And you don't get that chance again. You don't get a second chance with the people you love, with your grandchildren, with your country. You have sometimes only one chance to hit the right note. And we are at one of those crossroads in the existence of this democracy, a republic. Ben Franklin said, if you can keep it. It has never been in more danger. We have listened to this rhetoric. I say to my wife every morning after she wipes away her tears, because she can't stop listening to every podcast and everything to try to feed herself with information and knowledge so that she can do her part in reaching out, in knocking on doors and writing letters, as we all do with Gideon. We have a whole agenda. We're going out, Gideon and I, to Washington, D.C. and Maryland and Virginia, and we're going to hit this organization that we met at the DNC. We got in an airplane. Somebody got us credentials. We went to the DNC. We didn't know whether we'd be able to meet people or not, but we went to connect to people, to connect them to the people that we have the privilege of connecting with on our social media, to introduce them to people of all walks of life. And a guy walks up to me who's an undercover agent, and he has several elders with him. And he says, listen, we're trying to get some attention to these guys. And long story short is...
Several retired military generals and admirals.
There's the voice of reason. National Security Leaders for America. National Security Leaders for America. It is a group of over 650 retired military professionals. And we're heading out in a week from now to go have more interviews with these people. We did some at the DNC. We're going to do far more intense interviews with these people because they have been in the seat of power. They never, they have a tradition of never speaking out against, presidents or government. They have broken that tradition because they feel it is life and death. They feel it is a breath away from crazy people like Mr. Trump having a bad day and a nuclear holocaust 6 minutes later or 6 seconds later. So we are going to bring their voices to you. This is just one of the great privileges that we all have as people who are basically male men and women. We are communicators. We have the privilege of connecting to telling you that you have the power. We are not superheroes. You are the superheroes who are the members of Congress and the Senate who are willing to sit there even when the parental body of our great government can't seem to communicate with each other, but they have to hang in. They can't panic or have a mental breakdown. We need them there no matter what.
What would Inigo say?
Inigo would say, Bill Goldman, one of our great writers, and I've said this before, at the end of The Princess Bride, I sat there in the window. Andre the Giant jumped out. Andre the Giant's on the ground. The Princess Bride, Robin Wright, jumped out the window into his arms. And the man in black said to me, do I want to be the next Dread Pirate Roberts? And young Mandy, when I did that film, I said these words. And I only really heard them when I was 60 years old. And I saw it pop up on a screen in an exercise room. I have been in the revenge business so long. Now that it's over, I do not know what to do with the rest of my life. Well, I'm pretty close to Inigo. I know him maybe better than anybody, and I know exactly what he would be doing for the rest of his life. It is what everyone on this group is doing. It is what every listener is doing. We are working for a humane, peaceful, moral, ethical system of government, communication, voting, caring, equality to our fellow citizens and human beings, not just in our country, but around the world. And we can make this change happen. It doesn't happen by magic, it happens by connection. You make those connections with those phone calls and knocking on doors. You do, we do, everyone does what we can. This is not my comfort zone to be a politician. I like to work with a script and go over it 100,000, times till I have a million ideas. But I'm here because I'm out of my comfort zone to tell us all we have to keep on swimming till we win and make this world a better place. L'chaim.
L'chaim. Man, that's rally worthy. That is so motivating. I'm fired up and ready to go, and I thank you for that impassioned.
Can I just give him a hug? Mandy, can I give you a hug?
Yes. Thank you, baby. Thank you all. Thank you all.
Thank you, bro.
I breathe you in. I sat here for over an hour just listening because that's how I learn. That's how I learn what I think, to know what to say to my neighbors. I have friends and cousins and relatives who are on the other side, some polar opposite, some just next door. And I don't intend to change everyone, but I too intend to get you if you are not committed. I do intend to get you to the polls. I do intend to get you registered. I do intend to make sure you are engaged.
Well, you got us all even more engaged than we already were. Thank you.
Thank you all
so much.
And thank you. And everybody, please don't forget, donate. 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 Hit that button. Hit that button. Hit that button. It matters. It matters. You have seen these results come in. They are closer than your eyes. Donate. Whatever you can. It matters. Even Becky, did you hear my dog bark? She said donate.
Yeah, do you want this? Right?
Yeah, if you want to, but I don't want to push it.
Do you guys have a minute or you got to move on?
You got a song or something? What's going on?
Yeah,
I got a song if you want. When Gideon said you'd want a song, so
yeah, we need a song.
Okay, bro.
Gideon is the voice of reason.
This is a song that I love singing because it was written by Harold Arlen and Yip Harburg, and it was to honor their immigrant parents who came to this country for a new beginning. And they wrote this song, which I do partly. What's happening? There's my son with his technology. I love it when he makes a mistake. They wrote this song partly as a ode to their parents' struggle and journey to have this welcome to our country, as all of us are here, except African Americans were bought as slaves. Native Americans, had great trials and tribulations. But we are never giving up to try to bring justice and equality to everyone's life. So they wrote this song, which I'm going to do partly in English and partly in their native language, which was Yiddish. When all the world is a hopeless jumble and the raindrops tumble all around, heaven opens a magic lane. When all the clouds darken up the skyway, there's a rainbow, a highway to be found. Leading from your window pane to a place behind the sun, just a step beyond the rain. Über dem Regenbogen, hoch und weit, über dem Regenbogen ist geht vor Gott und Leid. Über dem Regenbogen der Himmel ist klar. Über dem Regenbogen, oi, wie dort mit sein Gor. Am Himmel wird kommen mein Glückstern, der Wolken wird verschwinden werden. Es versteht sich. Und alle Zuches und Amos, bringt das so wie sie von bloß. Als geht sich über dem Regenbogen a Vogel fliegt. Über dem Regenbogen, oi wie dort mit sein geht. If happy little bluebirds fly beyond the rainbow, why, oh why can't we?
I believe we can.
I believe
Thank
we
you.
can.
We're just all gonna.
What am I supposed to do now? My wife is gonna be like, "It finally happened. Somebody left you speechless." It's who knew?
Oh, thank you again, Mandy. Thank you, Gideon.
Andy, you're so
and,
beautiful, and to your son and your
camera.
dog and
Thanks to the
everybody.
whole
Thank
family.
you.
Thank
Yes.
you all.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for doing this.
You guys inspire us all every day. It's a community. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous community. And we love it, and we care, and we care, and we will keep on doing this till our last breath.
Yes. Yes. And speaking of breath, I'd love us all to just take one. Sean, will you take a breath with me? All right. We're here. And we've got a
I
bit
think
more.
I know. Are you looking for who's next? Because I think I
No,
know.
I know who's next.
Oh, you do?
I know
Okay,
who's
then you go.
next. Yeah. Maybe we both know. Let's see if we have the same cue. We have talked about the possible end of things. Even the word apocalypse was invoked, and sometimes we need stories of the apocalypse to help us avoid it. So to help us think about that, in a brief segment, we've got Tim Kring of Heroes fame and Marty Noxon of Buffy fame. Welcome.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks so much to Andrew and Baratunde and Sean for putting this on. I know Andrew's, worked tirelessly, and it's just been amazing to hear everybody.
You might even say he's been schlepping.
Yeah, incredible to hear everybody, and really humbling because we're just storytellers, but incredible.
Well, it's good to bring it back to that initial theme that we started with, mythology and storytelling, and where the capacity for emotional connection is with what you guys are doing, and then how it relates to this moment in the American story and world history, really. I mean, that we've said to everybody, just whatever you feel like sharing with this audience, whatever direction you want to take it, and we can ask you questions, but just share.
Well, I mean, obviously this whole idea of apocalyptic myths have been with us. Every culture has had them throughout history, and as we know, a lot of them have kind of similar stories that go back to Gilgamesh and the Great Flood and the washing away of everything. And these myths and stories are kind of metaphoric tales to allow us to connect the dots for our own troubles in the present world, and wrap them in a kind of a narrative structure that we can sort of understand around the campfire. But what these myths all really have in common is a sense of rebirth and renewal and redemption. And they aren't just about doom and gloom. They're an invitation to envision a better world to come after a chaotic crisis. So I was trying to think of what are the qualities in the people that do survive these apocalyptic myths, the ones that lead us kind of through them and remain as guides for us. And I think those characteristics are wisdom and inclusion and love and caring and courage and the pursuit of truth. And most importantly, it's this ability to see ourselves in the other and to know that your liberation is my liberation, that I can't do it without you. So those are qualities that I think we all want to cultivate in ourselves to help us get through this moment we're in. And as you were saying, I'm best known for my show Heroes, and it was a show about ordinary people that discover that they have extraordinary abilities. And there was a catchphrase that was synonymous with that show, which was "Save the cheerleader, save the world." And for me, that wasn't just a quirky kind of tongue-in-cheek little catchphrase. It actually embodied the kind of central idea of the show, this beautiful, simple, almost wish fulfillment idea that what if saving the world was really just came down to one small act concerning one seemingly insignificant person in the world. And built into this idea was the whole concept of interconnectivity and the idea that our lives are intricately tied and intertwined with one another. And if we really believe that we're all connected, then this means that the smallest acts of heroism and kindness can have huge ripple effects in the world. So I think that's sort of where, I'm sort of seeing it, that this moment that's in front of us is a chance for us to see ourselves as part of the story, as characters within our own mythic, heroic story. And so, yeah, easy peasy, as they say.
Easy peasy, lemon squeezing. What about you, Marty?
Oh my gosh, I had so many thoughts, because this has been such a rich discussion. But one of the things I wrote down is like, nobody ever got shit done with hopelessness. And I think one of the things that we all felt, first of all, hats off to, in a narrative, how many world leaders give up power? So hats off to Joe Biden again. That was sort of unprecedented, at least in my lifetime, to see someone do that. And, I think that for me, just feeling the shift from this sort of sense of inevitability, a little bit of pessimism, to this new message of kind of joy and possibility. On Buffy, one of the, we had so many apocalypse, we called them the apocalypse. There were so many, we had one season and, many big bads. And, but I mean, how I felt like those characters got through it was community, right? They had this, they had this family, maybe not their chosen family, but they had this family. And then, secondly, they had humor, which for me is a source of joy. And we've heard a lot of it today, but I think that one of the things, when we were talking about climate or when we talk about civil rights or, reproductive rights, giving into hopelessness is not going to get us anywhere. And even though there are times in Buffy when people felt hopeless, there was always that desire to survive and to thrive and to save your friends. I mean, if nothing else, save your friends, right? So I feel like right now, it's to continue that story of joy and hopefulness. Like, we can do this. It's the same with climate science. There's a lot of promising science. Hopelessness isn't going to get us anywhere, right? So I think, we're storytellers. The story we should be telling each other and to the people who are undecided is like, we can actually do this. This isn't, hopeless. And you know what? The big bad's not going anywhere. So, get used to, fighting the good fight and, trying to put these big bads down again and again and again. We can get tired, but we can't give up. And, yeah, I guess that's all I really have to add to this. It's just like, keep telling a story of joy and possibility, even in hard times, because there's really nothing else that's gonna, and lead with love. I mean, that's corny as all heck, but that is, I think, another way to change people's minds is to lead with love rather than, try to shout them down, because it hasn't worked for me yet.
Yeah, well, I want to thank you both. You kept a tight five. You could go on the road with this. That was really, really profound and just a reminder of interdependence. Marty, I want to thank you for breaking open the swear jar, which will get us some more funds for tonight. We pushed through 30K. Mark Ruffalo has offered up a 2K matching. So let's unlock that level of this interdependent heroic game in which we can all contribute to the group win. And yeah, thank you. Thank you both so much. And I want to rewatch both of those shows. This is awesome.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Sean, I think we have a special experiment. I think we're going to be experimenting on you
Yes.
real time.
I'm in learning mode now.
In front of the Activate Learning mode, live on the internet. We're bringing in a skilled digital strategist, the host of Graphic Policy Radio podcast, someone who leverages online platforms for political engagement and activism. Alana Levin is going to put you through some kind of boot camp. I haven't been fully briefed on this, but I'm always down to watch you squirm. So let's see what Alana's got in store for you.
Hi, you just muted still.
Say something. Let's get that audio test. Nope, we're not hearing. I don't know if that's your local or if that's our.
It reminds me of Tattletales, the game show when with the one contestant would have to have the ears where you couldn't hear. Yeah. Oh, there you go.
Right.
Is this good? Great. Thanks. Okay, Sean. So you probably know this, that you're a meme.
Yes.
And yeah, you're a meme. Have you ever memed yourself?
Yeah, but I usually clean it up pretty quick. Yeah.
So we are going to take advantage of the fact that we have someone, such as yourself, who is an activist who is also a meme, and we're going to be helping you to meme yourself, and in the process, hopefully, also instructing the people who are watching us in memeing as well, because memes are actually meaningful. They are part of how we frame the public conversation around this election. We've seen how much they've done things like shift the narrative to becoming a lot more positive in the recent months, recent weeks, I should say. And I think of them kind of as being like political cartoons that anyone can make, even if you're not good with technology. So I have a couple of guidelines I want folks to keep in mind as they're beginning to go through the process. Yes. Okay. So rule one: ask yourself, who are you trying to speak to? Think about who is your goal here? Who's the audience? For example, I was extremely people who are into 80s goth when I made It's Friday, I'm Monday, you can vote, early vote Tuesday, you can also vote meme. So, thinking about voter education, thinking about your audience. What is your goal? What is it you want people to do? Join up together in unity to protect a community. And ask yourself who represents what in the story. So in your case, you have been Samwise in many of these memes. You are often a voice of compassion and also someone who people relate to, right? Rather than being like the wizard. When we talk about Trump and who we position him as the villain, there's lots of different kinds of villains. Is he Biff Tannen from Back to the Future, or is he Sauron? And if we make him Sauron, are we giving him more power than he really has or not? So we are playing around with some of the quotes that Trump has said recently. And it kind of is a little bit absurd in this context. But the other thing is that when Trump is talking in public now, it's not just absurd evil, it's absurd incomprehensible evil that doesn't even mean anything. So, in a meme, generally speaking, we don't want to do a wall of text. It's too much. People can't read it. We can't process it. It's too crowded. But on the other hand, in this case, maybe it serves the purpose of showing you how overwhelmingly bizarre and weird he is here, Or maybe we want to kind of balance it. Maybe this is the right balance. Maybe somewhere in between the big wall of text and the short little quote. Maybe that's what captures it. I'd love, folks, if you're watching today, I want you to weigh in and tell us which form of this meme you think is going to be the most effective at lampooning Trump. So that's the goal for this one. And as we begin to prepare for the debate on the other next night, we want to think about how are we going to use what we know he's going to do and pivot that and set the tone of the debate from our own meme making, making sure everything is readable and legible and clear. So remember that big wall of text, oof, too much. And then think about whether or not we're going to go with the story of the image or contrast with it, right? So when we showed the Sauron with all the big wall of ridiculous nonsense that Trump said coming out of it, that's highlighting a contradiction. Sauron is scary and imposing, but this is also preposterous. And then another memes, like the ones we've been seeing and sharing with you, Samwise inspiring people forward, then we're following the narrative of that story, saying we're going to be heroes like Samwise. We have to know what we're doing with it. So here, for example, we have Barbie. She's saying to Ken, did you bring your local voter guide? And Ken is saying, I literally go nowhere without it. First off, look on top. Her speech bubble is above his. That's the order people read things. They read things top to bottom. And then here, it's backwards. So we have to think about what's the order you're putting text. You're going to people read things right to left, right? So he's saying maybe they didn't get the guidebook. He's also speaking as the authority, whereas she's asking questions and confused. So when we're making memes, we want to think about who is the voice of the authority, who do we want the audience to relate to, and where do we want them to put, are we contradicting the story or not? So I'm encouraging folks, we're going to make some Heroes for Harris memes, hashtag them, and I'm going to go into sharing a different window where we're going to make a meme together, assuming hopefully we have time to do that right now. I'm going to pause my sharing and share image flip. And I'm going to share here. And we're going to go here. Okay. Do you have any favorite images of, it doesn't have to be Samwise, but we all kind of feel Samwise inside. You want us to maybe use as a starting point for our meme making today? We have potatoes, and we can, this is just me thinking a brainstorm, don't let my, it doesn't have to.
I like that one.
Okay.
It's a horror show.
What is our goal with Samwise crying in this moment? Who is he representing? The voters?
Yeah.
Okay, he's representing the voters. What if we want to think about it like as a moment of inspiration and kind of a Heroes for Harris moment? Maybe there's a moment where it's maybe about being more resolute.
Well, the last one, this is really silly, this game. The last right before that one, looking off, there was, when I was in Michigan, we went to this volunteer fair and I shook like 250 people's hands and talked. And this one girl, probably 30 years old, I said, is the excitement real? Right? A bunch of them had come from Detroit, a big rally with the vice president, and they were all just buzzing. And I said, is it real? Like, does it have staying power? And she looked at me and she said, I was talking to my dad about that last night. And she goes, my dad, I said, do you think it's real? And he looked at me for a long time and he said, I'm hopeful. And he said it in a way where we haven't had permission to be hopeful in a long time. And this image kind of looks like, is it possible we could be hopeful? Is this, yeah. Yeah.
Maybe I rewatched Return of the King yesterday, and I was thinking, I was thinking a lot about the moment with the spider. Sorry,
Shelob. Yeah. You're not required to know that. That's not that. No testing on that one.
I have a nerd podcast, so I'm kind of required to know it. But I was like thinking about this moment where like she's paralyzing people and taking them out of action, and then you are able to wait out that and come back into the fight.
Yeah.
And maybe there's something in here. I don't know. I'm obsessed with this one of you wielding the light. We also were thinking also about the potatoes moment of explain as a
Well, there's
as
one that's over the shoulder, and it's really a shot of the spider rearing up. The spider could represent, back you devil is what he's saying to it.
and you can see like if there is an image you want to use that isn't in the image thing, you can upload things, folks. Like it doesn't have to be in here. It's just easier when it is. Oh, we don't have the spider in here. I had a lot of people sharing this one talking about like, do we have to go, like, is it over? And whether or not the struggle ever is really over, because we do continue. We have to bring it from one election to the next, but can we feel relief and joy in any of those moments?
Well, it's funny because the campaign's in this moment of joy and exuberance, and so it's almost like these are going to be relevant in a month when something doesn't go exactly the way you want it.
That's very real, yeah. And having patience and perseverance. Like you with the lembas spread, I think is a good.
Sergeant Gannell's talking about him about Trump pardoning, threatening to pardon all the January 6th people who were in jail. There's one of those pictures a couple ago, kind of like seemed like could be a comment on that.
Was it?
No, almost one more.
That's
an
animated movie.
Yeah, like that one.
Oh, the wait just a minute response.
You're gonna pardon what?
Yes. Yeah. Actually, I'm gonna put it as Trump's gonna pardon who?
Yeah.
This works for me. This works for me. Yeah. And I think this is definitely for an audience of people who follow the news, but maybe haven't heard that particular story. And maybe obviously it's for people who love the film, which is a huge chunk of people in the country. So when you make a meme you like, you can just save it. And the reason that Andrew and the folks here brought me into the session is that, we need folks to phone bank, we need folks to knock on doors, but we do also need folks contributing to the conversation in the media spaces. And we need folks generating inspiring imagery and also outrageous imagery and also bringing humor. And that's something that even if you can't be on your feet doing the doors, you have social anxiety, maybe you're not a good phone person. If you have humor, if you love the kinds of stories that the performers and actors in this space have been on, we have a connection with our communities where we can tell stories in those terms that they understand. You guys have had a whole talk about the power of story earlier. You don't need me to repeat that. But the meme making is a way that we can take that power of story, put it in the hands of people who don't have a big platform of their own. I'm going to post up some of these memes on social media, hashtag Heroes for Harris, see what sticks. I don't know what's going to be. I've been doing this for like as long as the internet exists, basically. I don't know what's going to work for sure. We only know when you try it. So come up with a lot of ideas, post a lot of ideas. If the first thing you do doesn't work, great, post a different iteration of it. Keep trying, keep being creative.
Keep trying, keep being creative. That's the assignment.
Yeah, there it is.
Thanks to this
that was really fun
session, we have a better understanding of it. Thank you, too. I'm gonna mess with Sean's face.
Jeez.
No problem.
Sean, Alana, thank you for demoing that. And I'm going to follow up with you because I want to know what tool you're using. I haven't played with.
They're all free. Imager, Giphy, all of it's free. That's one of the grassroots things about it. Yeah.
Yes, I love free things. Free is my favorite price point. We are going to keep the wheels turning. We are getting very close to the end. We have some financial updates coming. We have some mobilizers and some creators about to come on, led by one of the organizations for this event. We have Aaron Stevens from the Progressive Change Campaign Committee, who's going to bring on a few more folks to talk about mobilization and creation.
How's it going, everybody? I'll bring my my colleague Joe on, and I believe a couple of our creator friends.
Hey there, everybody. Really excited to be here. We'd love for Jose Rolon and Jason Linton to come on as well. Really, really great creators. We're here at the end. We've got just a little bit more time, so we're going to keep this really tight. But we'd love, since we just got that great meme boot camp from Ilana, they did some excellent work there. We'd love to hear sort of how you see how we can take these tools and skills and really move forward, especially around the debate. There's going to be so many opportunities on Tuesday for us to help Harris define herself and to help make sure that we don't allow sort of misinformation to rule the day. So I would love for both of you to talk a little bit about your work and just give us some tips and tricks, and then we can talk a little bit more about why this matters so much.
Is it my turn?
Yeah, Jason, go ahead.
All right, awesome. I'm Jason Linton. I don't know is the camera working right now?
Yes, it is.
Good. Okay. All right. I'm Jason Linton. Go by Dad Life Jason. I'm on all the platforms, the TikToks, the Instagrams, the Threads. Now because we don't use X anymore. One of the most amazing things for me that I've been seeing is me using the story of my family because I'm an adoptive father. I have adopted 3 children. 2 of them are African American. 1 of them is Caucasian. I am married to a Caucasian woman, so we have this multi-ethnic family here. And one of the things I've realized is back in 2020, I may have said something kind of offhand about the election back then, and the vitriol that came out at that time was absolutely overwhelming to the point where it made me shut down and I did not want to share any of my voice anymore in the political space. The thing that's different this year is being able to go to the DNC to actually feel this wave of hope and joy return. I felt like I don't want to be underneath this heaviness of disinformation, this heaviness of grievances that Trump has been doing, and his people have been putting out there. And one of the things that I've been doing is I humanize the politics. I show what the politics looks like in my family, and I try to one of my heroes is well, my biggest hero is Fred Rogers. I can never be him. But he's somebody that I aspire to be. He's the one that helped us not be afraid of police officers. He said, look for the helpers. Look for these people that are reaching out to people that are different. I remember he brought the young man on his show in the wheelchair, and it was this feeling of inclusion on his show that I carry through my channel, and I carry through me telling the story of my family. And one of the things that I do challenge people with, that goes beyond the memes, but it goes into the narrative is who do you want to be for the young eyes that are looking up at you? The young eyes that you may have adopted even and are sitting in your home and you're continuing to play the Fox News. You're playing all these things, and these kids that may be diverse from you, and they're trapped in this bubble that they're hearing all these horrible things about themselves. Stop what you're doing. Look at how you're affecting the humanity that's around you. And I bring a lot of humanity into the messaging that I'm doing, and I have a lot of positive feedback from threads where some people that may have been in the middle of the road, or maybe some people that are trying to die hard to the Republican ticket, but they feel uneasy because they're really at their core decent human beings.
Sure.
But there's stuff that's going on that they feel kind of sickened by, but they don't feel the courage to be vocal about it. And so I've started doing that. And don't you know, I've been wearing my t-shirt, my Harris and Waltz merch around here. And I've been seeing the tides turning a little bit, even in I live in Oklahoma. It's as rural as they come. There's Trump signs up and down the street. But every other block, you might see a Harris Waltz sign sticking in the middle of the lawn. and it gives hope to me. Coming back from the DNC, I felt like, oh man, this was so effervescent, and now I'm back, and it's over. But it's not. It's
Yep.
not. I get to carry that. Like this energy that you see coming from me is based on the real hope that you can feel from the DNC and from all of you guys that are doing what you're doing. I'm seeing Sean. I see Sean pop up on my social media when I'm scrolling. I'm like, yes, there's somebody else. We're not alone. And that's the most important thing that I can tell people that may be on the middle of the road or maybe dealing with some in-laws that might be on the other side of the street is that you're not alone. Your voice, continue to share it. Even if you feel like you're not getting the instant gratification of them saying, yes, I'm going to go vote for Harris, go ahead and plant the seed. Don't quit. And if you're out there and you don't even feel like you want to confront anybody, donate. Click the button, donate, show your power. Even if you don't want to open up your mouth, show something, do some work to help this go forward so we can get them in the White House.
Definitely. Jose, maybe I wanted to talk to you a little bit about something Jason said about responsibility. It's interesting. There's so many young eyes on folks that are not like traditional media, so many more eyes and getting their information from those spaces. I know that it's obviously difficult when you're in the public eye and you're speaking to these groups that maybe don't follow you necessarily for that take, but can you talk a little bit about the responsibility that you feel as a creator to push out the right information or just even be authentic in yourself and what you believe?
Yeah, thanks for that. So I think what's been really interesting in my space is, I've been really fortunate to, fit the Latinx space, the LGBTQ plus space. And I think for me, what was interesting in my journey, and I'll get to the responsibility part of it, is that, 10 years ago, 11 years ago, I was faced with this rare decision of, having to decide to follow through a pregnancy via surrogacy. So I had lost my husband when our son was 8 months old and we were 11 weeks pregnant with the twin girls. And, in Georgia at 11 weeks, you only have 1 week left to make that decision. And, for me, on top of the grieving and, having to make such quick decisions, it was really a tough time for me, but I had to make a decision quick. And I think for me, having to really rely on my support system and really think things through, because I think initially, to be honest, I was thinking about aborting because I thought like, who am I to raise 3 kids on my own? It's just impossible. And, not only was I able to decide to follow through the pregnancy, but I even announced that we were pregnant while giving my husband's eulogy. And the reason why I share that with everybody is because I was sort of put in that rare situation that a lot of women are faced with. Usually it's understandably slow. It's up to the woman to make that decision. And there I was as a man where that sole decision was on me. And for me, I got as close as I could. And I'm like, I'm not even a woman. My hormones aren't even going. And I can't even imagine what it would be like grieving, losing your husband as a woman. And so for me, to now be here 11 years later and to have these beautiful, Latina girls in my home and then my son, I've learned a lot about what it is to be responsible and to be selfless and, all while trying to have a sense of humor along the way, because we all have to have a sense of humor to get through, all this tragedy. And I think that, to be able to share my experience through social media and to be able to be at the DNC with Jason, I mean, it was such a phenomenal experience. And I think that we were sort of, as creators, we were sort of, I feel like I saw 3 types of creators there. There were ones that were there because they had the numbers. They were there that fit demographics, which I think Jason and I were maybe in that category. And then there were 3 people that were there that really focus on politics. And I think that, there was a bit of pushback of us being there, as maybe many of you all know, from, journalists who very didn't shy back about writing about us. And, the fact is, most of us were there on our own dime. There was like rumors that we were getting paid to be there, thousands of dollars, and like 10,000, 100,000 for some creators. I spent close to $6,000 to be there on my own accord from being invited, right? And so
and the energy there was so electric, I think everybody who was at the DNC walked out of that just feeling so much power, so inspired.
That's right. And I mean, just just vibrating from that, and just to be able to be in that space, knowing that there was some sort of thing in the space, I was like, that's okay. It is part of my responsibility to do what I can, not for myself, but for my children. And it goes obviously far beyond our children. I think, in New York City, we get so caught up in being in this bubble, and, beyond our, pizza and sarcasm. The reality is, I'm voting for the people that are between New York and LA. These are the people that I think about. These are the people of color I think about. These are the LGBTQ plus folks that, are disenfranchised and don't have a voice. And so I'm going to show up in those places like the DNC, even if there's moments of me feeling like, maybe, what am I doing here? I don't know if I belong, but I do belong. And I think that, as we continue to share our journey, it is the responsibility of all of us involved, all of us. If we have a small amount of following, I think it's really important to get ourselves out there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think, you two have done such a great job of laying out what is at stake here, right? And why it matters that everybody engage, everybody smash that donate button, everybody sign up for more opportunities to get engaged, everybody tune in for the debate, watch it on Tuesday and react. But I also want to turn over to Aaron really quickly to talk about a few other things that are at stake. Some of the stuff that we've been working on over at PCCC. Aaron, I know we're running close on time, so let's be tight, but.
Yeah, I'll make it super quick. My name is Aaron. I'm in Michigan here. I was a mayor here in Michigan before. So appreciate the folks looking out for us, and we're going to do everything we can do in Michigan to make things happen. We've got one candidate that's willing to crack down on corporations that are price gouging everything from groceries to gas to prescription drugs, and one candidate that wants to embolden those corporations and give tax breaks to their billionaire friends. The differences couldn't be more stark. I think we are fairly close to 40,000 at this point. And so I just want to give another big shout out. Please hit that donate button. I believe we have maybe another match even, my team is telling me, for another 2K. So please hit that donate button. Let's get to 40,000. Let's smash this out of the park. Really appreciate Jose and Jason, you guys being with us. I'll pass it over back to Baratunde.
Thank you for that very warm microphone. Thank you for this good conversation. A lot just about how to be in these really challenging times, and also how to hit your fundraising goals, which we are really doing over and over again. I believe we have like one more session, and we're going to bring a super-ish group together, but it's a very fluid situation. So I'm going to look very quickly this way and say, yes, that's what we're going to do. Can we get Tate Donovan, Amir Talai, and Henry Jenkins? Probably never been on the same stage together, but Tate is an actor who you may know from Hercules, also very active in SAG-AFTRA and in Democratic politics. Amir, also actor from Has Been Hotel, you may know, as well as Harold and Kumar Escape from Guantanamo Bay. Another work, Henry Jenkins, a comparative literature guru who's written like 1,000 books on this, set up a whole study department for it at MIT, now at University of Southern California. We're going to talk about a number of things. Before we get to that, I just want to make sure we got everybody all lined up. And I'm going to take a breath and say, Sean, how are you feeling right now?
I only know two of the three of them.
So tell us what you know. Why don't you kick us off? These are your homies.
It's been an amazing ride, this call. But Tate, it is so good to see you. You just are beautiful as ever. And Amir, it is always good to see you. But I don't know Henry yet. So
well, Henry, yeah.
comparative literature is my jam. So Anyhow, I mean, why don't we just go around the horn and we're kind of winding it down now, right? So how was your experience? What do you want to share with those of us who are remaining? I mean, Tate,
Yeah, and in particular about the power of pop culture, to affect change. I think that is the overriding driver. I know there's Amir, you had this Women's March poster. Maybe you want to talk about that, but don't want to force it. Let's
No, sure.
alphabetically speaking.
Yeah, well, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
In 2017, I was at the Women's March and I was following the lead of some Black women who felt that the Women's March felt overwhelmingly white and was ignoring what had come before. And there was a lot of women at the Women's March who hadn't been showing up at any Black Lives Matter marches. And so I created a sign that said, I'll see you nice white ladies at the next Black Lives Matter march, right? And that was a kind of a moment. It went crazy viral. And I think what it spoke to is your ability to show up in spaces that aren't necessarily curated for you, but that you can have an impact in, right? And I think that in that moment, in this march that was for women, that it was useful to remind people there are other people who are struggling as well, and it's something that I take very much to heart. In a lot of my work right now, I fight a lot for reproductive health, for abortion rights, and a lot of the fans of our show who I meet are like, it's incredible to see a man fighting for reproductive rights, and it's like we need to show up for each other. If you're just showing up for the stuff that makes sense for you, it doesn't connect us, right? You connect by fighting for each other. And I think that I think it's pretty powerful when one person can make a statement, right, with a sign or a tweet or a meme or appear on a show. I play an asexual character on my show. Those little connective tissues between people are what bring us together, and it's really, really powerful.
Thank you for that. And that's again back to our interdependence theme. I'll make a Professor Henry Jenkins sandwich here and let you bring it home with your homie Tate. I misspoke and said comparative literature because it is after 1 a.m. where I am right now. But it's comparative media, in particular participatory media. And I know of Professor Jenkins because he's mentored some people who have mentored me. But when it comes to fandom, Professor Jenkins, I'm curious what you make of MAGA as a fandom, and is there a counter fandom for the others of us, the rest of us, through Harris and beyond? What would it take to out fan that fandom? And if you want to reject the premise and say something else smart, go for it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I want to begin by noting that I've been spending the last 15 years at USC heading a project called the Civic Imagination Project, which is looking at the role of stories and imagination for social change. What we're seeing here mostly in the session has been celebrity-driven activism, right? The stars of our favorite shows, the heroes of our movies speaking to us through this channel. But I also want to pay tribute to fan activism, which is bottom up, which is participatory, which is what happens when we meme or we write fanfic. It's what happens when we see kids who grew up recording skateboarding and using it to record and live cast protest marches, right? We're seeing the power of fandom bottom up to make change. And that is tied to this idea of the civic imagination. Before we can build a better world, we have to imagine what a better world looks like. We have to imagine ourselves as agents capable of making change. We have to imagine the community we are part of. We have to imagine a process of change. We have to imagine the feelings of people whose experiences and perspectives are different than our own. For those who are most marginalized, you have to imagine freedom, democracy, respect, before you directly experience it. And all of us can take that imagination and charge our everyday life. So I grew up in Georgia, and which is obviously going to be a big state in this election. I grew up in an all-white world. I went to segregated schools, segregated churches, lived in a segregated neighborhood. But what I saw on television in the 60s were two things: Star Trek and Dr. King, both of whom changed how I saw the world in powerful ways. All right, Star Trek represented a multi-planetary coalition, its own kind of league or fellowship of people who've worked together and fought together to build a better solar system, a better universe. So as I close today, I want to think about some young boy living in rural Georgia, right? Statistics are showing us that young women are overwhelmingly supporting Harris, but young men are holding back. So I want to speak to you, the boy I was, the boy that you may be today, surrounded by a red state, a little blue dot and a red bubble of counties. Maybe you live in Marjorie Taylor Greene's district. Have the courage, if you believe, to take a stand for Harris and Walz, to vote Democratic, because your vote will matter. Your vote, it could be a matter of a few thousand votes in Georgia. And if each of you just took that step to vote, I think it would make a tremendous difference. And just as I learned in my segregated white little bubble to be supportive of civil rights and all kinds of other issues today, I think you can do it too. And I think that step is a vital one. So I'm speaking you fan to fan, live long and prosper and vote. We're not going back.
Not going back. We're not going back. Tate.
Sean.
Cher.
I haven't seen you since we fought World War II together.
I know. We won that one. We won that one.
We won that one. We're going to win this one, man. We're going to win this one because, I mean, how lucky are we to have a candidate like Kamala Harris and Tim Walz? I mean, we're just the luckiest group, you know? I mean, I just watched that DNC and it was just so filled with joy and smarts and hope and open-heartedness and open-mindedness. I was just so enthused and so psyched and so thrilled that you asked me to come on to this, because I just feel like I watched that and I'm like, okay, I got to do whatever I can, whatever you need, whatever, I can knock on doors, make phone calls, donate. I loved what Bill McKinnon said, get out of your comfort zone, right? I mean, it's like, I got to get out of my comfort zone. And that's what I'm doing. I'm just like, I'm just going to do whatever I can. And, it's funny that we're talking about heroes, because heroes, it's like none of us think that we're heroes. I did the voice of Hercules, and the character of Hercules in Disney, he's obsessed with being a hero. That's all he wants. He wants to be a hero. He wants to be a hero. And he's complaining to Zeus, his dad, I want to be a hero. And he beats all these, he's killing all these dragons and saving all these children's lives, and all that's great. But he doesn't really become a hero until he opens his heart, falls in love, and sacrifices everything for that person that he loves. And that's exactly what we got to do. We all got to sacrifice. We got to get up off our couches. We got to, as soon as the Zoom, donate, and then sign up to volunteer and trust me, man, I'm an actor, right? Everyone thinks that I'm like, going to be good at, I've been knocking on doors and making phone calls, and it's so hard. It's so scary. I mean, to walk up on a door. I mean, I know I hate when my door is knocked on. I'm like, who the hell is this guy? But to just have the courage and just go, hey, I just want to know if you're voting, if you have a plan to vote, and just discuss the issues. Do you know about Harris? Do you have a voting plan? Do the kids in your family, how many, who's eligible to vote? Let's get them down to the polls. Do you need a ride? Whatever you can do, we got to do it, man, because we're so lucky to have her. We're so lucky to have her, and she's going to make an amazing president. I'm stoked.
It's great bottling. It's just like enthusiasm. You just like put it in a can. It's like just spray this on. But that moment, so many volunteers when I'm talking to them, and it's true for myself as well. It's like you don't have to be an expert on really anything. All you have to know is yourself. Why are you here? And the words I don't know are a shocking cohesive. Somebody
Well,
will,
the
what do you
other
know
the
about this?
other
I actually
thing the other thing it helps to know, and maybe Tate, you could help us articulate this differently, but you just got to know how to go the distance.
go the distance.
Yeah,
Can
it's
I
not.
say, can I
Yeah,
say
it's not
too,
this.
I think that you don't even need to know why you're doing what you're doing. You can even take it deeper and think about who you're doing it for, right? Like for me, I think about the women in my life whose rights are under attack. I think about a lot of the young kids who I meet who are fans of the show who are scared at school or scared because they don't know if they'll have the right to be themselves, right? So even if you don't know why you're doing it, there's someone in your life that you care about, you love very much, and think about them when you're donating, when you're volunteering, when you're spreading the good word.
Think about this, Amir. When you knock on someone's door, you're initiating an exchange. The person opens the door and you say what you're prepared to say. But then, uh, so often, what happens is the person on the other side of the door ends up teaching you something. And you've actually given them the gift of how good it feels when you teach somebody something. So, democracy is clumsy and sloppy and whatever, but when you reach forward, like we all know, and all the people that should, if you're still on this call after all this time, you've had some experience with this. But
Yeah,
anyhow,
It's so funny.
we're
It's
doing
so
it
funny
right
you
now.
said that, Sean, because my experience, whenever I get down about an election, my candidate's polling terribly, or it's just like, oh man, I can't believe we're gonna lose, or something has gone wrong. I volunteer. I get on the phone. I knock on doors. I write postcards. I just do something. And every single time I meet one person, or I speak to one, I have a conversation, or something happens when I'm writing a postcard, I find a glimmer of hope and I write something funny, or if something happens that takes me out of this like gloom, and I just feel connected to all of you, and that this has been the best part of this whole Zoom for me, is just listening to all these different people express the same thing so beautifully and so variedly, and coming from such different so I want to thank you guys for doing this and inviting me along, because you're just badass, and there's no way we're gonna lose, because when we fight we win.
Oh, look at that. What a
but
nice
that one I'm
dismount and
good.
a nice way to put a bow on this segment. Professor Jenkins, Amir, Tate, thank you, thank you, thank you. We are going to bring on two more to close out with me and Sean. Andrew Slack, get yourself back on this stage. Ron Perlman, get yourself back on this stage, and let's get a status update on how we've done with our storytelling, with our Kamala-Con 2024, with our fundraising, with our energy vibe shifting.
Hello.
Ron, go ahead.
You go, Andrew.
Just a couple of housekeeping things. I'll say that, we this was the first ever Kamala-Con, and hopefully it won't be the last. And there are what's amazing is that spontaneously we're seeing fan activists emerge. So on September 24th, the great Linda Carter is going to be doing Geeks and Nerds for Harris. Everybody should be going to that. What's incredible about these two things happening spontaneously and separate from each other is it shows how fandom is so powerful, and that we can all step up as the heroes that we have been waiting for. And it's an amazing thing. I want to just thank a couple people. We have an incredible board of advisors at Heroes for Harris, including, I want to give a special shout out to our newest member of that Council of Elrond, that we call it Council of Elrond, Alex Shikarchian. who was instrumental in bringing some of the talent here tonight. There were amazing people that brought all of this together. Big shout out to Baratunde Thurston and to Sean Astin for just leading the way here, and just from different countries. And, you know, we're just, guys, we have a big fight ahead of us. And I am so grateful to every single person that got to speak here today. It was, I mean, for goodness sakes, as a Jewish leftist progressive, to watch Mandy Patinkin sing Somewhere Over the Rainbow in Yiddish is maybe one of the best experiences of my entire life. To have Samwise Gamgee say that there's some goodness in this world, Mr. Frodo, and it's worth fighting for. That is the thing we need to remember, because when we hear about horrors that are happening to children, when we hear about violence in schools, when we hear about violence to women across our country for things that are completely preventable, when we hear about the fact that the entire world could be destroyed because we have lacked the imagination to get beyond our fear and greed, this is serious. It's serious shit. And we're going to fight. We're going to fight in every way we know how. The world needs a new name. Our country needs a new name, as Tammy Stronach so beautifully said at the beginning, and we're going to give it that new name. And we're going to give Kamala Harris a new name, as Tammy said, Madam President. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for being part of Heroes for Harris. Thank you for being part of this first ever Kamala-Con. And Ron, if you want to just close us out, because you bring so much of that red meat energy, that Aragorn energy, that Hellboy energy. Let's raise some Hellboy.
Well, thank you, Andrew. I'm so just delighted that you guys included me in this. I've been obsessing over heroism from many different points of view. I think becoming an actor partially is one's aspiration to align himself with heroism without having the balls to actually, know what you will do when you are in the line of fire. But just aligning myself with the consciousness of the hero's journey, and then being privileged to be able to have conversations with real guys like Sergeant Canal and Alexander Vindman. The one thing that continues to move me about the hero's journey is there's nothing greater, there's no greater attribute of the human condition than someone who is able to life and safety up for a greater good, for an idea bigger than his. It's exactly what this country defining factor in every moment that we stepped into the world of conflict in order to beat down fascism and all of the ugliness that imbues. And it's what we stand for. And we cannot allow ourselves to ever give voice to someone who looks at that very thing, the greatest, most beautiful gift God has ever given to the human condition, which is self-sacrifice, and who calls them suckers and losers. I mean, that's why this is an emergency. That's the one thing I wanted to say. The other thing I wanted to say is when we're in that big discussion in those last few weeks after the first debate between Biden and Trump, my heart was breaking because I was looking at all the pressure that Joe Biden was under and comparing that with the amount of amazing goodness that he restored into our safety, our economy, but also the way we're viewed worldwide. And now he's being bullied and manipulated and this and that by even people in his own family. And the idea of Kamala Harris was abstract because the idea of him walking away from the election was abstract. We couldn't imagine especially with like 100 days to go before election day, that was insane thing to even imagine. And then he goes and does it. And an hour later, he announces that he's endorsing Kamala Harris. And an hour after that, she makes the statement, I've dealt with fraudsters, I've dealt with womanizers, I've dealt with diddlers, I've dealt with every kind of bullshit motherfucker you can come up with. You know, I'll put as much money in the curse jar as you want right now. In fact, $1,000 for everything I just said is coming your way. And I know his type. At that moment, I just said to myself, she's the answer to our prayers, because she's going to be the first one who actually occupies a space that is so largely humane, that has spent her entire life fighting injustice and fighting bullies and fighting and realizing that, you know, it's they're not worthy of the oxygen they take up and they must be put down. She's the perfect person for this moment. And she is the answer to my prayer. I think she's the answer to all of our prayers. I am so thrilled to be on, have anything I can possibly contribute to furthering the cause of turning everybody on to Kamala. The other day, I was watching the news, and you know, in real time, the news of the shooting in Georgia came on the news, and she happened to be giving a speech, and they cross-pollinated her speech with the news of the shooting, and you know, all of the things that ensue when something like that goes down. Who did it? You know, like how many died, and then they kept counter-programming that, and she had prepared remarks because she was in some city, you know, with her stump speech. And she took the time to react in real time to the heartbreakingness, the inhumanity of the gun violent scourge that the country is in the grip of, revealing not only a willingness to go off book, which is, you know, takes a lot of balls for anybody to do, particularly someone who's running for office and can't afford a misstep, but revealing a humanity in her and a sympathy in her and an empathy in her, where you look at her worthiness on those levels, you look at her ability to make decisions that are going to be for the greater good and keep people safe by reacting with strength. And then you look at a guy who calls our fallen heroes suckers and losers. It's no contest, man. And that's all I have to say. You know, this is a beautiful place.
That was amazing, man. And I have some great news, which is that I've been told we just hit $40,000 on this call. And this is the beginning of great things. Thank you to PCCC, the Progressive Change Campaign Committee. Thank you to all of our partners. Baratunde and Sean, you want to just say adios to everybody? Thank you.
I mean, I think you guys said it. You know, she's like Samwise in that she was in a supporting role for the last 3.5 years, and now she stepped out, and all of a sudden you're starting to see what a, you know, charismatic, tough, smart, you know, aggressive, you know, capable person is, and she hasn't been able to do that for a long time. So it's just great to see everything that Ron just said, and you know, they're gonna try and cut her down. So we just have to be there for her. We have to have her back. The whole country has to have her back right now.
Yeah, and I'll just add that this is a story about us, you know, and like, do we fall for, succumb to the temptation to fear and to blame and to cower? On the other end, do we, you know, put everything on a person? I'm so eager to disagree with President Harris. I'm so looking forward to protesting her policies and not being beaten, not having my friends jailed and locked up. I look forward to a rule of law-based set of disagreements where we work through a process of democracy with each other and don't bow down to any particular person. And the thing that really lit me up about Vice President, hopefully soon to be Harris, it's not like a super deep personal fandom, but what Ron said, she rose to this moment in a way that far exceeded my own expectations. And in her first campaign ad, the core thing I heard wasn't a statement. It wasn't a promise of all this stuff she's gonna do. With politicians, you do that, that's fine, whatever. She actually asked a question. She said, what kind of country do we want to live in? And that is inviting energy. That is collective, narrative, invitational energy for us to all contribute to this story, this heroic collective story that we get to write together because of where we are and when we are. And so her and her team seeing that, let's hold them to that. Let's do our part for that. And we've done such good work here. Thank you. Love you all. Glad to be a part of this.
Love you back, bro.